Good evening. Welcome to the third round of budget meetings for the City of College Park. I'm Mayor Bianca Motley-Broom. We have a full quorum present with council members Clay, Karn, Allen, and Gay. So at this time, I will call the meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. And the first department we have is Recreation Administration. Good evening, Ms. Johnson. How are you?
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right.
We will go ahead and start with page 1 of 3 on their budget worksheet report. Questions on page 1?
Michelle, first thing, how many vacancies would you say you have?
In admin, there are no vacancies.
I mean, just total.
Just total, we're a part-time custodian is the only position we have unfilled,
So everything's full across the board.
except for custodian part-time, correct?
How many of those?
Just one,
Just one, so only one position unfilled.
correct. And then we have our summer jobs that we're filling, which are seasonal.
All right.
Questions on page 1?
Page 1. Repair and maintenance of vehicles and equipment, and jumping from 5,000 to 10,000, or
So-
6,000 to 10,000.
So I looked that up, that's that Moody allocation that was something that's added on for Moody's.
So that's just an allocation,
Yes, sir.
okay? And you cut your conventions and meetings down. Of course, you spent 0 this year.
Yes, sir, I wanted to do some training with GMA this year, also with GRPA. I'm doing a mentorship with
But you
GRPA.
think you got enough?
It would be depending on if Lance would want to do training. That would be
Okay.
the only, it's just Lance, myself, and the admin
Okay.
in this budget.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Other questions on page 1?
The telephone, line 5240, just curious why the high request? I see it was taken down to 12,000 from 50,000.
So I'm assuming that's the new telephone systems, and y'all did some allocations different? I'm not quite sure.
Previously, IT allocated all the charges to the admin department. Now they've spread it across the other departments, facilities, programs.
Gotcha. Okay. I had the same two questions, the Moody's allocation and the conventions, you know.
Any other questions on page 1? Hearing none, we'll move forward to page 2. Line 526170, contractual services. So that includes grant writing, is that correct?
Correct. So MetroCorps helps us with any additional engineer plans, helping with reporting. So that is not in our grant line per se, because those are outside contractual services that we have a contract with them for.
I had a quick, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, this is really for Mr. Hawthorne, and I guess we're talking about the list. I think that a lot of our staff serves as whatever their job is / grant writer, and if there's an opportunity for us to examine having a full-time grant writer on staff, I think it would be a position that would pay dividends across the board because of the ability to devote to so many federal and state grants that are coming up at this point. We're sort of uniquely poised at this point to capitalize on some of those things. So if there's an opportunity to have that discussion as we come back around, that I would appreciate that.
And poison ourselves, being shovel ready for a lot of these projects that the grants are out there, it really does put us in first come when we have a project with already plans and things established. We become desirable to get those grants, so it is really helpful.
And I've got another question on line 526070. We're going to see that elsewhere in the budget, correct?
Correct.
Swimming pool supplies.
So
Okay.
These
right.
past 3 years,
Where are you, Mayor?
Line 52, 60, 70.
it's
On page one?
On page 2.
it's
No.
swimming pools, supplies, and services. Lance and I worked on this budget 3 years together. The first year, we weren't fully, but we are trying to separate. That will be in facilities. And then the contract for the pools will be in programs. So it'll be separated out in those two other.
Could you speak into the mic a little
Sure,
better?
sure.
Or raise the mic maybe?
Sure, Councilman Clay. So we've had pool supplies in admin. Admin is just myself, Lance Terry, and Paulette Payne. So it didn't make sense to have swimming pool supplies in this budget. So we'll have in programs will be the contract for aquatic management, and in facilities will be supplies and materials for pools. So it is somewhere else in the budget.
So quality management is in this page, and the supplies are in the other page?
Actually, aquatic management will be in programs, which is not admin, it's in programs budget.
Okay.
And then the facility information will be in the facilities part of the other portion of this budget. There's 3 budgets to recreation.
Okay.
And Mayor,
And-
just to clarify,
Yes,
grants
Mr. Hopper.
writing is something you want to see on the list across the organization?
Across the organization, yes, sir. It popped up when I was looking at this particular budget, but I think that it is a need across the board. And my last question on page 2 is line 53, 70, 80, in recreational supplies. I didn't see a detail for that.
So those would just be anything that we would need, supplies for admin, whether it be a tool or, I think we've got vehicles outside, that we put all vehicles or anything supplies that we may need for, because everything else is in programs for recreational supplies. This is just for admin.
Okay. All right, other questions on page 2?
Okay.
Yes, I've got one on 526193, citywide events. We've spent already this year about $95,000, and you're cutting it to $70,000. What are you cutting out?
So, citywide events, we've expanded this into admin. Most everything for programs came out of recreational supplies, which is programs budget. So some of these things were coded incorrectly for citywide events, like DJ services, and those are in programs. So there's some coding that we didn't do properly here. And we also received a $15,500 grant from Fulton County Arts. So we may have spent it, but we received a grant for that portion of some of the arts. So I'm expecting
So this
70.
is going down, but others are going up?
Correct, correct.
Okay.
Is that the same thing for 7360? It says other administration supplies, 5,000 this year, going to 600 next year. Is that just the same thing where you're
70.
putting them in other departments?
Tell me that number again, Councilman.
7360, 537360. Other administration supplies, this year you spent 5,000.
Yeah, that would probably, because the account codes are quite close, sometimes the staff and I won't catch it, whether it's in admin or whether it's in programming.
Right, okay. The other question I had was, you need to replace a couple of vehicles, or?
Yes, so we've got, and Lance could probably
You-
expound, but we've got, we had a van that went to Public Works that they use for a cargo. We have 2 vans currently. One is a transport van that is 15 passenger. Then we also have a 15 passenger, but it doesn't have the seats in it because we transport items, whether it's speakers to a citywide event. So we really need 2 15 passenger vans. That would put us having 3 different vehicles at 3 different centers that could be used to pick up or to carry kids for programming for state meets or things like that. So
Will
then
they
a
be
truck.
secured? Will they be secured there?
So we have looked into putting a fencing in the back of Conley, and the same thing we probably need to do at Brady for the future. But we're also looking at a truck replace that will not pass inspections currently. We use it just to pick up trash at the football field. So we're looking at a truck to replace and a 15-passenger van.
Okay.
But I had the same question, Ken, and that's a little misleading, the way it's written up. It says you're replacing a vehicle that you're using to haul in with a vehicle that you're going to put people in. So now you'll have 3 people vehicles. Now, I'm not saying I disagree with the concept, but you also say, well, we're not really going to scrap this old vehicle. We're just going to keep it around. So in effect, what you've really done is you've added another people van so that now you have 3 people vans, and you're not really going to scrap the old van.
Yeah, so the van that currently has no seats in it, we use all the time to pick up
Yeah, no,
activities, yeah.
I know, but it says you're replacing it. You're not really replacing it.
Correct, that term should not have been replaced, replacing it for
just-
a passenger vehicle.
Just a stickler for that point. That's all, Michelle.
I don't have any other questions.
Additional questions on page 2.
I got a few here. Line 6170, contractual services. We mentioned MetroCore. I didn't see that in the detail. I just saw the 2 things here.
It should
I had them there, but maybe I missed it.
170.
Let's see.
I think I just put contractual grant service.
Grant
Yeah,
funding administration.
I didn't see any, I didn't see any engineering there under that.
Well, that's the service that he provides is grant along with reporting and civil services.
Okay, so once we get a city engineer in here, you think, are we still gonna need them, or you think some of that can be taken care of by the city engineer, or
I'm not sure, I'd have to defer to Jackson on that one.
what
He's
kind of
the-
stuff is MetroCore doing?
They're for the bathrooms currently that we're looking.
I can barely hear you.
I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm normally really loud. Basketball, for the basketball court, they'll do the drawings for the RFP. The bathrooms at Barrett would do the drawings, the civil engineer drawings for that, to go out for RFP. He helped us with, also with the roof at Wyatt Center.
All right, okay, so that's in the grant funding line, so, okay,
Our city engineer don't have architectural drawings, and we don't have programs to do civil or architectural drawings. Okay. So we never bought the program.
I always wonder if we could possibly get that up there at GIS if possible, at some point. Get some programming, some software. We can't do that?
No.
Well, you need the skill to go along with the program, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, and it takes,
And I think that's part of the problem, Joe.
Now, a person doesn't have those skills.
I agree with the grant
It's a completely different skill set, is it not?
takes a different skill set than actually doing drawings.
All right, gotcha, okay. The citywide events, just had a few questions here. I saw there's quite a long list here. The pop-up concerts, music series, that's in the detail. It's still one of the 6193, one of the 6193 pieces here. So what, is that, where are those held?
So we've been trying to do them across the city. We've done, what did we do at Wyatt? The Gospel Fest. We did Gospel Fest at Wyatt. We've done music on the lawn in front of the auditorium. So we're trying to spread that across the city. We did the wine stroll in conjunction with Main Street Association.
Good, I'm good to see that. One of the things I noticed on this list is most of these are in and around up here in this region more than anywhere else. So I want to figure out how we can spread more of these things around so that other parts of the city get to, have a little better chance of participating.
Yeah, so I do try, senior Thanksgiving luncheon was done at Brady. Wyatt Center did the Gospel Fest. So we certainly do take that into account. We do movies at Wyatt Center. We try to spread them out. Brady Center, we did Trunk or Treat, tried to do it the year before. This year we did it at Wyatt.
Yeah, okay, well, good. Let's try to, spread them around a little more. I think that'd be good. I don't know if we've ever had many events there at the Willis Park there on Camp Creek at all, but I don't know if they can really hold an event per se along those lines or not, but I'd like to see something programmed for residents over there that don't have transportation and can't get up here.
Certainly.
So, I don't know if you could.
And by the
pick
way,
a
the Easter
couple
egg
out.
hunt was fantastic. I've never seen as many kids get as many eggs so fast in my life. So,
Oh, boy.
It was a beautiful day.
I think that's all I had on those 2 pages.
I don't think it-
All right, any other questions on page 2? Hearing none. Any questions on the totals on page 3? They are the totals. Any questions on the transaction report itself, page 1?
I got mine answered.
Page 2? Page 3? All right, any supporting documentation? All right.
Question, Michelle. Just overall, I don't know if we can get some kind of overview in terms of enrollment in programs, how we're looking, how many folks are signing up for this, how many folks are signing up to that compared to years previous. Are we trending up? Are we trending down? Are we about the same? That kind of stuff. And I know it's not budget, but I wanted to know in terms of where we're going, what direction we're looking in, how we're actually looking. Also, the local kids that are participating, I want to definitely look at that because I know the majority of our folks probably aren't local folks necessarily in terms of the kids. But I'd like to get a ratio percentage so that we know, if we're, pulling our kids into programming or how many we are, So I don't know if we can get that, if you could just put that on some kind of a summary so we'll know where we're at, just in general, and how the programs are going.
Questions on the org chart for recreation programs?
So no vacant positions here either?
The only position, like I said, is in facilities. This is programs facilities, is just that part-time custodian.
Okay.
Questions on page 1?
Page 1, 52, 5340, vehicle rental. What did we add to that?
So we do transportation for day camp. We, for the 6 weeks, we'll do one day camp trip, whether it's the aquarium, and we split that up for the 3 centers.
And you can't use those vans for that, or is it too
It's
small for them?
Yeah, it would take several trips to get,
Okay.
50 kids or 150
Even though you
kids.
have 3 of them now?
Yeah, I mean, we've got 150 kids registered
Okay.
to get them down there and get them back.
Okay, and also on line 52, 57, 50, I looked at the detail, and it's the Phoenix Trail call boxes, but where else are we putting any call boxes? We have them in the parks now, right?
Correct. Phoenix Trail is the only that I'm aware of that doesn't.
Okay, oh, they're definitely needed there.
And I've actually looked at a grant for Phoenix Trail also, so hopefully that might get covered.
Additional questions on page 1?
Piggybacking on the daycare thing, I didn't have any idea we had that many kids enrolled. I'd like to get a kind of an approximate number, too, of kids that live in the city, per se, what the percentage is in terms of daycare. The other thing, I guess, is the amount we charge. Is it comparable to some of the outside daycares? Is it cheaper? Is it more? Where do we stand in that in terms of what we charge, or do we do a discount for employees? Or just some data on same along the lines of the programs and local kids, and kids that don't live locally. When I say locally, city of College Park kids. So I'd like to get that information.
Is it day camp or daycare?
It's a day camp.
Okay, so this is summer day camp we're
Yes,
talking about.
and very,
You're right,
very
right.
inexpensive, $110 for the 2 weeks.
I have a question about the 5,700. You all recommended 5,000. You spent about 5,400 this year, 4,900 the year before, and now you're not going to spend any?
So we'll have almost all new vehicles. So I'm
So you
hoping we don't
expect
spend
any-
anything.
You don't expect any maintenance?
I hope not. So, right.
I hope not, too.
So that's, like I said, one of the trucks is not even past emissions.
Okay.
Can't even get parts.
Under 5750, parks, repair and maintenance, I see you requested about $2,000, and you're getting 9,200 here. So was it just more stuff that needed work than we
The call
realized?
boxes.
That's the call box.
Oh, that's the call
Those
boxes.
are the Phoenix
Okay.
Trail
Yeah.
call
Those
boxes.
are the boxes. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. All right. Do we have them at all of the parks now? Because I saw a couple.
So we probably need to look at Brannon, the new park up there at Hawthorne Station would be probably the next that we would need to look at.
Is that the only one that doesn't have a call box?
Ooh. I'm not sure if Willis has one. So I probably need to look into that. I don't believe it does.
It'd just be
Willis
good to
Park?
know.
It does not. I think it's just Phillips and Barrett and Zuck.
I know there's one at Willis Park. I see the blue light there. Is that the call box?
I think unless they put a new one in there. Because
Did
the
they put
police
one in?
got,
Where's that, Joe?
At the Willis Park on Camp Creek. I see the blue light
Yeah,
on
I think that's one.
okay, so that would be all except for the Phoenix Trail and the new Brannon Park that we haven't opened yet. We're finishing up with Hawthorne Station.
Is that just for new ones, or does that include maintenance too, or do you?
I'm not sure police did that grant, so I'll need to follow up on that. Because we call them to come out to get it taken care of. They check on them monthly.
Are they used much? I guess that would be the police department would
yeah.
know. Okay, gotta remember to ask, if there's use on those. I mean, everybody has a cell phone, but, it's still good to have those there.
Additional questions on page 1? Moving on to page 2.
I've got one on page 2, line 52, 60, 70, swimming pool supplies and service. And I went back to the detail on packet page 30, electronic packet page 30 anyhow, and it assumes an equal amount for each pool and the splash pad. And I can't believe that the maintenance on the splash pad is equal to that of a pool.
So it's not really broken down that way. The contract is just broken up as a total amount, and I just divvied it up for the budget. Does that
Enough
make sense?
said, understand, okay.
Additional questions on page 2?
Yeah, I have one on 537150. You requested 55,000 and got 20,000, and that's for tables and chairs.
So there were duplicates.
What are you leaving out?
So there were duplicates. I had put money in here and also in another portion of the budget. So I went back and checked that today. So it was, took out duplicates that it had for floor and legacy contract, which is in
Okay.
facilities, not in programs.
6170 contractual services. You got a bunch of stuff in here.
So on,
I'm Go
sorry.
ahead.
On contractual services in our programming, we're able to run a report for the year. For Kids Gym, we can run a report of how much money is brought in, and we pay out 75%. So those numbers are really solid based on what our revenue is. So we listed out exactly based on this year what those contractual services were or what we paid out.
This is what we paid out. So what are we bringing in nowadays with Kids Gym?
190, I believe.
190, and looks like we're spending 230 here, if I added up correctly thereabout. I guess most of the contractual services are a little over 60% is Kids Gym. Do we just skew that way because of the revenues they bring in, or I know that's your thing, gymnastics.
Yes, so it is revenue. I run the report and I listed out contractual based on the amount that they brought in and 75% we paid off. So I put out what we have to pay them, the 75%.
I wonder what we would have to do to bring the revenues up in some of these other programs that are
Increase fees.
increased fees. That's the only way, the interest,
Well,
in terms of getting the interest up.
Interest is, we're booming. We need bigger, more buildings.
All right, it's a good problem to have.
I
guess.
know, it's wonderful.
I see the kids out at the basketball court there by the track, and that kind of free play, I think, is a good thing. I want to make sure they have the same kind of access to the gyms, and a lot of times I hear, well, sometimes we can play, sometimes we can't play. I don't know the process for that, but, you know, sometimes I go in those gyms and I look at the gym floors and I say, they look nice and shiny. And
Takes care of
I
them.
guess you can say that's a good thing, but at the same time, I want to see them worn out.
Well, we do. We finish them, and then, you know, programming after school is our programming. So we have activities going. There is free gym play at Brady. There is times for kids to come in, but sometimes you're limited by time for after school.
What about free play at Godby? I think that that's important. And is that happening or not happening? If not, what's the reason?
No, there is free play at both Godby and Brady. So we're trying to make sure we make activities available for the residents along with having our programming scheduling.
Okay, because I'm hearing sometimes some kids they'll go in and it's not happening.
Well, we may have scheduled practice for basketball or scheduled volleyball practice.
Okay, I got you. Well, I want us, if we can figure out a way to make sure that, you know, we have some allotted time. I mean, I guess a lot of folks want to play at the same time. But we got the 2 gymnasiums there. Maybe we could, you know, I want us to just keep that in mind where kids can go in there if it's some downtime. So generally, if there's nothing on the schedule, they can come in and free play?
If it's scheduled for free play, yes. If we don't have programming, yes.
If you don't have programming?
Right, so, you know, if it's season for basketball, they have scheduled team practice.
I got you. Okay, so is it only one time a year that they do the basketball, or I thought that was a year-round deal?
It is year-round. We have rec program, and then we have travel ball.
Travel,
And we
yeah.
encourage, and we actually had some grant money given to us for GRPA for basketball this year, which is great.
What is travel ball?
The club, after they roll in, they go into the travel ball, AAU. It's not AAU anymore.
Okay, and these are the kids that enroll in the programs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. All right.
Additional questions on page 2?
I have a follow-up on Councilman Carnes' question. Last time we looked, I recall that we were over 90% of the participants in our programs came from outside of College Park.
I think we're at 30. I think
Is
you
that
and I
still
looked
true?
at 33%. I think you and I looked at.
Pardon?
I think when you asked that question, we were at a third that were College Park residents, 30337 or 30349.
So is 90% still correct?
Well, not if it's a third.
Well,
So
a third is 33%.
right, 33.
So are you
close to-
saying 33% are external to the city?
No,
or
they're city employees. I mean, city residents.
City residents inside the city, they live inside our city boundaries. About 33% of the participants in the recreational programs live within our boundaries.
Yeah, you'd asked me, I believe you and I had that conversation.
Yeah, I asked that question periodically.
Yeah.
At one time, I thought it was much higher than that. So has it come down
I'll
for
have
some
to
reason? Or
double check. I go back and look at that report that I sent you.
Okay, so it,
I'll check on it.
okay, so so getting back to Councilman Card's question, if 66%, 2/3 of the people are coming from outside of College Park, and we don't have enough time for free play for our kids, maybe we ought to be reducing some of the programs that cater heavily to kids outside the city. Just a thought.
You know, I guess I was touching on some of that just in general. You know, we got great programs. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're spectacular. When I was 12 years old in the 7th grade, I wanted to play baseball for College Park because my cousin played in College Park. He lived on Alexandria Way. And it was a much better program. It was more popular, you know, so I came on over and played. I wasn't that great of a baseball player, but at the same time, again, we want to make sure the kids that are most in need in terms of keeping their minds out of trouble and the whole nine, you know, the fundamentals of purpose of Parks and Rec. I think we want to stay focused on that as well and really just understand, you know, I guess it's a philosophy behind it as well in terms of what it's for, who it's for. is it designated as a moneymaker? Well, no, you want to make some revenues in there, but, you know, are we still providing children that can't afford to sign up for programs a slot where they can participate?
Oh, are you, I think, absolutely.
So a kid that can't afford it, you work something out with the parents and make sure that they're able to play. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Additional questions on page 2? Hearing none, we'll move to page 3, which is a pretty short one.
I had a couple of questions. The 7640 and 7851, you had requested additional funds and none were put in there. Is there something we're leaving out, or is that put in another? 547640, you requested 15.
I think, let me check on, I think that was the tennis courts.
And then the next one was the parks, requested 46, and it got to 0. So I didn't know if you're pushing that off to next year, or that's in another.
I don't know if it's the tennis courts or not. Let me just make sure. 7640. That's facilities.
Says other equipment replaced.
So that was some folding chairs and tables and stackable, and she's, Althea said we moved it to another,
that moved
to
it, okay.
facilities, out of programs and moved it to facilities.
And the parks, 46 200, 7851.
Call boxes is on there, so it was some of the items removed. Mulch, pavilion, roof, yes, all those were moved to probably recreational
Okay,
and
that's for
facilities.
Nick,
Added programs into the correct budget of facilities.
Any other questions on page 3?
Michelle, the park rangers now, you moved, those are out of your department now.
Correct.
They're in
They're with
Public
Public
Works.
Works.
Right,
Correct.
okay. And I know y'all did make that move. Now, was there consideration to make any changes or keeping them there? Is that the best deal?
So, and Lance could probably help me with the history, but prior to them coming to to recreation, they were in Parks and Grounds. So they got moved over into recreation, but some of the issues where we don't have vehicles for park rangers to travel, pick up trash, so we don't really work outside in the park. So
Right,
it just made sense for it to go back to Public Works. And I'm sure they'll have some comments on that today.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a public works type activity, yeah.
Right, they're out there daily, they've got staff out there daily to see what the needs are. And they let me know as far as playground equipment, they inform me, they inspect and they let me know what equipment we need to purchase.
And that line is in which part of your budget, the playground equipment replacements?
It's in recreational supplies and programming.
So we already passed it, or
It's in the details.
is it in this one here?
It's
or
line
is it,
537080 on page 2.
5780?
537080.
It's the recreational supplies.
Okay, is most of that equipment, or what is
It's
that?
all equipment for all programming. That would include parks.
Okay, I hadn't looked at the detail, but I'm assuming, we've been talking about some replacement, so that replaces everything that needs replacing in all 4 of the major parts?
So that would be,
Is that-
if you're asking about a new playground, is that what you're asking about?
No,
Or
no,
just,
no,
just
no.
general replacement? Yeah, any replacement parks. If a swing needs to be replaced, anything with Parks and Grounds lets me know, Public Works lets me know, and we purchase it and they install
Okay.
and take care of
All
it for us.
Additional questions on page 3. Moving on to the budget transaction, page 1. Questions?
Which one are we on now?
The budget transaction report.
Oh,
Nothing,
The
I got
detail.
mine answered.
Are there any questions on those 7 pages?
I have one question, I don't know if it's on these pages.
Okay.
Can you confirm where the, City Kids Fest and Ward 4 Festival, city contribution budget?
I have that under departmental. She doesn't have it in her budget. I personally put it in the budget under non-departmental. You're welcome.
Any other questions on the budget transaction?
Nope.
All right. Moving on to recreation facilities. Any questions on the org chart? Moving on to page 1.
I have a question on 52, 5710, 22,000, and you break it down into commercial stove and replacement of water fountains. Are those water fountains in the recreation buildings or what are?
In the city auditorium,
Oh, okay.
the bottle refillers.
Oh, okay. All right.
Additional questions on page 1.
Nope.
Moving on to page 2, 52, 57, 40. What is the stepping stone at the Wyatt Center?
So on the side of the Wyatt Center, it's holding a lot of water. So something the staff has to go around on a daily basis. So something that they can walk through without.
It is literally a stepping stone.
It's literally a stepping stone.
Okay.
Well, speaking of that, over at Willis Park, there's some flooding issues that go on when it rains there. And I talked to Tim, I know we were talking about doing some kind of drainage to take that off, send that elsewhere. Sometimes when I'm down there, I feel like we could use some stepping stones down there, but it only floods in certain little areas, and it's in and around the front parking close to the pavilions, which is probably the worst place.
Right.
So I don't know if you've taken a look out there lately, but it's something I definitely want us to work on.
Additional questions on page 2.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Roderick.
No, you can go ahead.
Just to follow up to the discussion on stepping stones, there is a low spot in the brick walk around Barrett Park, and I don't know, I didn't see that in the budget, but I assume it's going to get taken care of. The bricks are going to be raised or something.
Are we talking about on the walkway or on the playground side?
I'm talking about the walkway, the circular
Yeah.
walkway on the west side.
I had a citizen reach out to me, and they, I think Tim had a crew out there, but there might need to be some landscaping to keep the runoff from
Okay.
happening there.
Thank you.
Michelle, and like I said, I've got quite a bit more than just a small issue at Willis Park. So at some point, I really want to take a look at some improvements there. Now, I do not want a restroom there, but there are some improvements that need to happen, and I want to maybe get with you and we go walk it one day and take a look at some stuff
Absolutely.
that the other parks have that we don't.
Councilman Cards, I just want you to be aware that that park was built in a floodplain.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, well
Okay,
aware.
so,
Yeah,
yes, there's
we-
only certain things that could be accomplished.
Well, we're gonna try some stuff. I know, Tim, we talked about working on some stuff that we could do there, right? Well, I guess whatever we think we can do to eliminate some of the flooding over there, at least in the areas that are heavily used there, so.
Councilman Gay, I know you had a question.
Oh, under, R&M Building and Recreation, the Phillips Park parking lot needs to be restriped, particularly the handicap sections, and we requested that now for some time. I don't think that's but about 30 parking spaces.
Yes, we
That
can
was never done.
see what
But
street.
it's necessary because when we have events, it helps people to park safely. And,
Councilman, could you get closer to the microphone?
you
Thank
have
you.
tree removal, $10,000, that's citywide for all of
It's for whatever we see we may need in the parks or for our facilities.
Because-
We're
because
having
at-
some
at
tree
Phillips-
issues in the city. There are some,
At Phillips Park, there are several large pine trees that are damaging the walkway. Under Mike Mason, he took those trees out which I thought was a bit much, but we haven't had that root.
Removed.
So maybe, I don't know if you got enough money, $10,000 for the whole city. Because one tree could be a couple $1,000. That's all I have.
Does,
Additional questions on page 2.
Does Public Work come out there and trim some of these trees? See, you got tree trimming and removal.
It's been typically a tree trimming service that we reach out to. We get a quote and go from there. If we've got a limb, if I think there's a limb hanging over playground area, fields, we try to make sure it's safe.
Okay.
And we had several at ZUP this
I know,
year.
I assume Public Works does some little tree trimming around in terms of not major stuff, but, and then I know Hugh has a tree cutting service to cut back off the power lines. But this $10,000, that's enough to cover everything for a year?
I've also got some clearing also in the budget so we should be.
Okay. In the same R&M, scoreboard repairs, $10,000 is one of the scoreboards going bad?
So ZUP Park, I've actually reached out to Dick Sporting Good, who did our mini pitch, and we're hoping to receive some grant funding to help, because we've got scoreboards across the city, from Badgett Stadium to Evans to ZUP to Brandon Field, a brand new one up there. So there's some scoreboards, but I'm hoping we can get ZUP Park taken care of. So that would be a new scoreboard at Brandon. And then we just replaced the one at Badgett.
Okay.
Yeah, we've also got them inside the basketball gyms too.
Okay. So that's just regular. So there are none that are down right now.
ZUPs, I would say, are not
ZUP.
working properly.
Okay.
That's our number one priority, is taking
Okay.
care out there.
Okay, got it. Ice machine repair, 6 machines. Now, are they working, or this is just money in case they?
So we do maintenance, I think it's every 6 months. They come out and clean them for
Just
safety reasons.
upkeep.
Yeah, just upkeep.
Okay.
But the one at Conley it was donated by Cam Newton and is on its last leg.
Oh, all right, okay.
Additional questions on page 2. Moving on to page 3, which is a lot of totals.
I have a question on supplies.
What line are you on, sir?
I'm not sure yet because it's on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 line items. So under janitorial supplies, 70/20. Is that based on you divided 67,000 by the facilities we have?
70/20, it's Brady Center, Conley Center, Park and Restroom Supplies, Phillips Park Restroom Renovation, which was just some upkeeps, the toilets, some just cosmetic things that need to be taken care of out there, and then the Wyatt Center supplies.
So when you all make these purchases, are we doing this through like a procurement program, or each department going out and buying this stuff?
So it's all procurement through purchasing. I mean, we set up through either Peebles or, what's the other janitorial?
I would like.
Councilman, can you make sure that you're close to the microphone? Thank you.
I would like for us to have a conversation later after the maybe post-budget, about putting all our procurements through some type of centralized purchasing program rather than it being by department. I'll bring some examples.
Okay.
Question, Michelle. So you're saying everything that you purchase goes through purchasing?
Well, they set up accounts. We have to set up through vendor accounts with them, so he approves that.
I don't understand what that means, but,
So we can't just go purchase anything from anywhere.
Okay.
Mr. Moody sets it up, makes sure it's either state bid or however we're going to purchase. We
and I
do
know,
get-
when I say everything, I don't mean literally. I mean, if you gotta go get some styrofoam cups, I'm assuming you
We'll
go
go
get
over
some
to our
styrofoam
purchasing
cups.
department, yeah. So there's still some things that purchasing does for us also. But batteries, just depends on Lowe's. I mean, but there are accounts that are set up citywide.
Okay, so basically outside of the small stuff, it
Correct.
goes through purchasing?
Well, I mean, we order it, but he sets it up, whatever those accounts are. come on.
What, I don't know, so what does that mean?
Any vendors, she's referring to vendors. They all have to be set up through finance. Someone can't just go add a vendor into our system. They have to go through purchasing to get those accounts set up.
Or you have to be on the vendor list?
No.
No.
She,
Okay.
if she's ordering a product from a particular vendor that's not in the system, we have to add them into the system in order to process a check to pay them. So they have to go through purchasing, who sets up every vendor.
Okay, I thought that was our vendor list, so that's something else.
That's the vendor list as
Okay,
well, but,
that's what I
yeah.
thought. All right, but unless there's another type that you all started that I didn't
No.
know about. Okay, all right. Last thing, one thing I did not see in here in terms of repair and maintenance that I think is definitely about time. The resurfacing of the track. I'm on there a lot, and I remember the last time we had it done before I went to the county. It seems like that thing wore down pretty doggone fast. You know, I don't know how long they're actually supposed to last, and I'm not anywhere close near a track resurfacing expert, but it sure seems like that thing wore down pretty quickly. And I wonder the next time we get it done, can we look at another outfit to get it done? Because it just felt like it didn't last that long, and it's worn down in the middle of the lanes. Like already, is it supposed to wear down that fast?
I would think we're at 10 years, right? Go ahead.
It was redone in summer of 17. And normally,
That was fast.
it's just that the color of it has faded. It hasn't worn out as far as the texture of the stuff, but it's just the color, because we had the color of the red. So it is time for us to address it.
We talked
Okay,
about it. Yeah.
what did that run last time we did that ballpark?
I can't remember. The last time we did it, remember, we stripped the rubber surface all the way down to the concrete.
I remember that.
'Cause we had patching to do. And once they patched it, we came out with the rubber surface. So now, I would believe all we need to do is go back and put the color on top of it.
I run that track, and there's some color spots, but it's some where it's actually, the surface is starting to wear down, in addition to some of the color being gone. From what I can tell, I can, you can feel a slight,
There's been some areas in there where some of the patches came up, we had to have patched, spotted from different areas, but it's time for us to address it.
Yeah, Lance and I talked about it. We were thinking we'd look at it for the next year. We were hoping we'd get 10 years out of it, but we don't think that's going to happen.
How long are they supposed to last? I mean,
I'm not sure. I want to say that the previous time before that, we probably got somewhere around 8 years, but we went way longer than we should have from the previous time. It's been done twice since I've been here.
I think that Woodward Academy track is 10 years at this point, the one that they replaced the Tri-Cities Plaza.
Right.
And it looks pretty doggone good. Now, the question is, did they resurface that one within the last 10 years or not? I mean, I don't know.
I can
but-
check and see, but, they limit how much activity they have over
Yeah,
there.
we've
We're-
got-
I think we're on ours way more than
Yeah,
we're
we
on
utilize
ours.
it.
Well, theirs is
Which
not
has-
it's not for the public, of course,
Right.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
Theirs is just a practice track.
Yeah, they don't do half the amount of
So
activity.
so we didn't want to put that in this year's budget?
I don't know what the cost would be. I need to look to.
Well, I think it'd be good to take a look at it. City manager, I know, you're new in town, just, when you get a chance, go out there and walk the track. You just use your best judgment, say, hey, is this thing need fixing or not? And,
I am a walker,
hey, yeah, I mean,
miles at a time.
it's it's the only one we got, and it's used a lot. But
It's
it's
a
one of
fantastic asset for the city. It's
It's
wonderful.
a huge asset. It's one of the amenities that universally, it's a big plus for us, and you want it to look good all the time. So, yeah, I'd like us to look at what it costs, and if someone can bring it back, city manager, before we finish the budget cycle, I'd just like to see what it runs. I'm just curious about that. But,
Should be on the list.
yeah.
Additional questions on page 2.
No.
Nope.
Page 3.
I have one question.
Yes, sir?
60, 70 replaster maintenance of Wyatt and Conley pools, hotel, motel funding. Question, Is this plastering cracks, and will this be done before the pool season?
So,
Where is he?
I'm sorry, sir, what line are you on?
What is it, 60, 70?
Page
Yeah.
304, 60, 70, plaster, maintenance of wide and colored pool.
At top of the page at the bottom of the swimming pool supply list.
He's on the budget transaction report.
Yeah,
Thank
the
you.
transfer.
So, both pools need to be replastered. We would not do it until after this season. So we would get through the swim high season and then plaster it afterwards.
In the winter.
Well, August. So we'd be August to, we've got, and we've done it one time prior, the Conley pool.
We've done, once at Conley, the one at Tracy White has not been done since it's been built. We've done each of the baby pools at least once.
Okay.
You know, I had heard from time to time from residents that they thought, and everyone has their own opinion on this stuff, but a lot of folks thought we closed too early, the pools closed too early, before, I guess they felt the last of summer was, done for them or whatever have you. Are we pretty much in line with the rest of the public swimming pools?
Yeah, so we've looked at attendance. It's high attendance at the beginning of the summer, middle of the summer, it dies down, and closer to school, there's maybe 10 people up at the pool. So we would love to, accommodate those, but they're not.
So we're about in line with the ebb and the flow of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And it is, as the season gets to the ends, the interest dies down.
got it. Well, we got the splash pad, so that can,
Yeah,
does that close down at the exact time as the pools, or how is that gonna work?
so we're gonna do, Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7 for the splash pad.
And we're not doing Sundays?
So we don't do the pools on Sunday. We don't have staff
Right.
in on Sundays.
Now, the splash pad
And
is.
we've talked about that, so,
Is that gonna be, is that thing gonna be staffed, or does it need to be, or?
no, we'll have staff there.
Okay.
There'll be staff. And attendant.
Additional questions on the budget transaction report?
The Wi-Fi for the parks, on packet page 1 of 4, Wi-Fi for the parks, line 52, 57, 30. So that's going to be accomplished this year?
Yes, so we had a company that we were going to do Phillips Park, and we went to sign the contract, and Mr. Hicks and I had not heard anything. They kind of split. So we're hoping
You haven't heard anything back from them?
they either split, the company split. I'd have to let Mr. Hicks give
Okay,
you some more.
so
we're
you're
hoping,
looking for a new company.
and we're in the process of meeting with them. Mr. Hicks has got some conversations going on with them currently.
And
So we'd have to
the
rebid out.
implementation in the park, is it going to, Barrett's a small park, so you could put it almost anywhere with modern technology and probably pretty much cover the park. But Phillips, for example, is a much larger park. Have you looked at the technology of how many nodes you're going to have?
Yeah, we did a workshop presentation, do you remember?
I'm sorry?
We did a workshop presentation for that Wi-Fi, so we're hoping we would, definitely go back through the coverage, but that would be their presentation to
Okay.
see what our needs are for that
Okay,
park.
so your intent is to cover the whole park, regardless of the size of the park?
Absolutely. That has
Okay,
been my
good.
goal for 3 years, is for people to go out in that park, to be able to be a mommy or a child, work on their homework. Absolutely.
Okay. Just make sure we have enough bandwidth to cover, because you're going to have a lot of people that will show up in the parking lot perhaps to use the Wi-Fi too.
Michelle, overall, how much marketing would you say is, coming out of your department for just awareness to the public that we've got these events and we got this stuff going on? Because I know we talk about it a few times. A lot of the times, the apartment community is a little bit in the dark in terms of what's available, what's going on.
So we do a monthly newsletter We've got the park bulletin boards that we go out monthly and put that information out in the parks. We send emails. We have over 7,000 participants that we send out. We also communicate with communications on our information that we're getting out. We've got our website also. We update that information. We put Spin the District up there today. So we are really priding ourselves in making sure that the information that we have is out there for people to see and to find. So we certainly want participants to know what's going on.
Well, for the most part, it's not reaching the apartment communities at all. Well, a lot of those folks don't have Comcast cable. Whether they check the website or not, that's anybody's guess, but we can actually get a count, which communications is supposed to be getting us a count of how many people are on that website daily or weekly. The 7,000 emails, is this the same list from communications that's the 9,000 list, or is this a different list?
I know that she's used we've shared our information with her. Those are participants, whether they're local or outside the city limits. She would have to tell you, I'm not sure what, but I know she has asked for our information, and we've shared that list with them.
So is this this is the same list or a different list, the 7,000?
I don't know. My list are my actual participants in the program. That's who we email.
Okay. And I guess the question is, again, when we talk about reaching out, we got these great services, but if the local residents don't know what's available, it's kind of hard to get them in. And like Councilmember Clay said, if 90% of our participants are outside folks, which is nothing necessarily wrong with that, but our residents, pay the taxes and pay the freight on this thing. But again, 75% of our residents live in our multifamily and our rental community. They may not be aware of the programs that are going on. We talk about reaching out and communicating with our residents. Who are we talking to? Who is that 7,000? I'd like to see the makeup of that list in terms of outreach. Who are we talking to? And if we don't know, and communications has said they don't know. So I said, well, somebody's got to know who we're actually talking to, what that list is compiled from, or where did it come from? Like I've got email lists that I've had, in the county. I got an 80,000 name email list that I utilize, but I knew who I had on my list. I knew who I was talking to, where those came from. So I kind of like to know who we're reaching out to, because our apartment communities, which probably need Parks and Rec the most, are we communicating with them? The kids the most in need, I think these programs are probably going to benefit the most. If we're not reaching them, I want to make sure, and city manager, I guess part of this is directed at you, I want us to make sure we're making an effort, when we're communicating, it's great communications, but make sure we're talking to who we are reaching out to. And if we don't know who we're talking to, which I still haven't gotten a definite answer on that 9,000 email list, then we need to find out. We're a transient population again. Our apartment complexes would likely be more than happy to provide you with email lists of the tenants. Every couple of months, every 3 or 4 months, however you need them, they'll probably be happy to provide you for them, because if their kids are able to do stuff and can keep them out of, trouble, it'll be good to let them know that you've got all these great programs. But a lot of times they don't know. So we can't assume because it's on the television station, it's on the website. Well, everybody doesn't have those outlets, and those that do have the outlets, they may not use them. So let's just try to make sure we're communicating with the kids that need it the most.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I've seen some of the flyers at some of the apartments on Godby that I've been in, some of the flyers that y'all have put out there. So I don't know how you hold the managers responsible for making sure it gets out, but they're out there usually when they come in and pay their bills, they're out there. So thank you for doing that on Godby Road. Appreciate it.
Ms. Johnson, I have a final comment before we move off the budget. 3 things. 8 years that I've been on council, Phillips Park has not had playground replacement. It's never brought to the budget sessions. It's always talked about being a grant But in the 8 years I've been on council, with hundreds of millions of dollars, when will, and people are asking me, when will we advocate for equipment as a recreation director? When will you advocate for equipment for our park?
So at, CDBG, we do have funds coming for Phillips Park Playground.
Well, I'm aware of that conversation, but we only have $175,000 earmarked from CDBG, correct?
I don't know what the amount will be, but
Well, mean,
when I
that's
did,
that was my meeting with Ms. Benjamin, at the end of the year. It's only $175,000 earmarked. I see car rental tax, I see hotel motel tax, but I think those residents, deserve a playground. If you go around the cities of Atlanta and all of the cities, there are playgrounds everywhere, and we continue not to get a playground.
again, application for playgrounds, that is my number one priority, is to replace all the playgrounds at all the parks. And we've been doing that through the CDBG grant, had not done anything outside of budget.
Well, Ms. Bradley, I would like for us to, when we bring these budgets together, I don't know if you need our consensus to ask for it, but I'm asking that we start looking at improving a playground that's not been improved since I've lived here since 1998. I'm talking with people who telling me they played on those same sets when they were children. These people in their 40s. And the second question I want to say to you is, I don't see anything for Brandon Park. I know Rockland Homes is pretty much paying the cost, but I don't see it included in maintenance, park rangers.
So park rangers would be with Public Works, and then Lance and I do have sod in there. We've got maintenance in for Brandon Park, in regular field maintenance.
And my third and final question is, where's Evans Field for these expanded lights? Where's Evans Field?
It's in front of the swimming pool on College Street, in front of Conley, the baseball field.
The baseball, not the track and field.
No, it's the baseball field.
Do we have a timeline for the lights? I know you said you've got, 160,000, I think it is. Do we have a timeline when that will be going in, or?
So Hugh would put out an RFP for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we did that at Brannon Field just recently with Hawthorne.
And Michelle, I think, overall, and I think what Councilman Gay is trying to say is, there is a difference in quality between some of the parks based on, where they're located. The quality at Zupp and Barrett is slightly different from the ones at Phillips and Camp Creek. There are some differences in terms of just upkeep, maintenance, repair, whatever have you. Just, so just try to be cognizant to make sure you're covering certain areas to the same standards that you're covering certain other areas. I guess that's the best way I can say it. But I've noticed it over the years. So let's just try to be more aware and make sure we're covering a little more with equity, I guess you could say, more or less.
I look at the parks as a whole, not as an area. So I hope that would not be any visual on that. That is not.
I look at them as a whole, too.
Councilman, let's let Councilman.
I'll just say then, I get what you're saying, but you do see differences from time to time, and that's something we just really need to be cognizant of.
Councilman Gay?
I just want to make a final appeal that we need to have a conversation about a playground and it not be dependent on the lottery system with CDBG. Those people deserve a new playground just like all these other grants that's been awarded, like finding the Flint, like lights at Evans, like pump stations. Those people deserve, they deserve the same amenities that other parts of the community deserve. They deserve that. And no, I don't see a recreation director advocating for it. I don't hire you a recreation director. You're not advocating for playgrounds at parks that haven't had one since we were children, at a city that brings in $140 million. I don't want to get into a temper tantrum, but that's not right.
Ms. Johnson, I have a question for you. In terms of investment in each park, and I know that you look at them as a whole, but since 2020, would you be able to
Just an overview of what we've done for the
well,
parks in
well,
general?
an
or-
overview and in terms of the money that's gone into each park since 2020?
So we did, U.S. Soccer Foundation did a grant at Phillips for the mini pitch. They also have done one for Zup Park, and those were close to $100,000 or more. Then we had CDBG did the splash pad, which was reappropriated funds for the school. So we did that splash pad. We finished up this past summer.
How much was that?
584,000. So we are currently finished up. We did a $100,000 playground at Barrett, and we chose that because it was one of the smaller playgrounds that we could, not give an adequate, could complete the project. We were looking at doing Zup and Phillips were the two parks, and funding. It's in a flood zone at Zup, so we've got to figure out how we're going to work on doing that one. And then we have put in for Phillips Park that we think that based on CDBG that we'll have funds coming for that. And to Councilman Gay's, it may not be enough because it is one of the larger parks. So to his point, I don't know what that amount would be for doing that park. So we've done lighting up at Brannon Field, which was done through Hawthorne with the new restroom with the development out there, and reestablished Brannon Field. So that's to be completed here hopefully by the end of the summer. And did I miss anything? I think that's everything that we've done.
Mayor,
And-
I'm sorry.
I wanted to thank you and your staff for, that is just quickly in my brain.
There's still more to do.
Well, absolutely. There's always more to do, and we are always working to improve the quality of life for our residents and our visitors. That sounds close to probably about $1 million worth of investment in our parks over the last several years. And so I'm just appreciative to you and your staff for those efforts. But Mr. Hawthorne?
Yeah, as Councilman Gay was asking his questions and then your follow-up, Mayor, I leaned over and asked Mr. Myers if we have a formal, what most people call capital improvement program, usually over 5 years. If we don't have such a plan, and I actually call it a community investment plan, it's something that you can expect to see next year. And I look at it as, I hate to say a cafeteria, but I believe we have a responsibility to assess all of the needs of the community throughout, speaking from a physical infrastructure standpoint. And while grants are good and identified for selected projects, I kind of take the opposite approach. Let's identify all of the needs of the community, things that we need to invest in, whether it's in recreation, just throughout the organization. So if that is something, if that is a tool that we haven't had in the past, it will be something that I will be bringing to you. Comprehensive, you won't be able to fund it. The number will be way more than we can afford, but it's important that the city council know what the needs are from that expert assessment from your staff.
Fair enough.
Additional questions on the budget transaction?
Yeah, I just wanted to do a quick follow-up to Councilman Carn's point about getting the word out. Michelle or anybody that knows, we have these email lists. They come from a database. Does the database have an address to go with the email? Okay, guys, all you have to do is take that database and those emails and feed them in to a little bit of software that will generate a density map. Our GIS department should be able to do this.
Jonathan, yeah.
And they should be able to show exactly
It's a great idea.
where you are reaching with that email list. And so you should see a whole bunch of pins on top of Councilman Carn's apartment building. And a less dense thing over my ward because it's mostly houses. And it's a real easy way to see where you're reaching your constituency. And I would suggest, and it may not be up to date and it needs to be updated, but forget that. Just for starters, let's see what we're using right now and see where it's actually, what people it's actually reaching, in theory.
That
It's
makes
a great
lot of
idea.
sense.
I will get with Jonathan. He's the GIS expert.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
Ambrose,
it's easy.
And Ambrose, when you said addresses attached to this list, did you mean email addresses or physical
No,
Physical.
addresses?
We
Email
have both.
addresses won't do you any good.
Exactly.
So
There
our
are physical addresses attached to those 7,000 emails?
Correct. Our
then-
participants put that information in when they sign up. Yes.
So in terms of your 7,000 person email list, we don't have that many people in programs, do we?
Oh, we have more than that.
We have more than that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got an address on all
Those
7,000.
are who register in our
Okay.
programming.
So
Well,
we
we
got an
can,
address on
we
all.
can even see then how many are coming from Alpharetta, for example.
Yeah. Can you do that?
I'll get with Jonathan. Jonathan's the GIS.
Sounds good. All right.
You can.
Yeah, that'll definitely help us out. We know who we're talking to.
Additional questions on the budget transaction?
Nope.
All right. Moving on to engineering. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for all you do and your crew,
Thank you, Michelle.
even though I didn't get an Easter egg.
I'm sorry.
What is it?
The facility supervisor, Althea just mentioned to me to remind
Oh,
you
yeah.
about the wish list of a Conley supervisor. I know you, Councilman Clay, asked about having a supervisor at all facilities, and we do not. Conley does not have a supervisor there. We have an athletic coordinator acting in 2 positions to oversee the daily operations from 8 to 5 for any facility issues along with athletics. So that was something we had on the budget in 2019, and then COVID hit. So we're looking for consideration for that position.
So you're proposing that, right?
Correct. I think we have it on the wish list. The wish list.
It's on the list, but it's not in the budget.
Correct. So I just
Not
wanted to
funded,
give.
right.
But
Just
it
wanted-
is, but you said Conley, I thought.
Correct. So each center, Wyatt
understand.
and Brady have a center supervisor. At Conley, there has never been a center supervisor. It
And
is-
why is that?
I cannot, just was never a center supervisor there. So our org chart, we've got people not reporting to a center supervisor, they're reporting to an athletic coordinator.
Would you be promoting that person up and then
I'm
promoting?
not sure. We've had some discussions, which she would,
Something you have to look at.
what
yeah.
we would need to, but we'd like to be able to, that athletic coordinator needs to be able to be at programming in the evening, and the center supervisor needs to be available morning and night, but mostly during daily operations of running the business portion. So that was it. So I apologize for jumping back in.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
And that's on our list, not funded, is that? Correct. All right.
Moving on to engineering. Questions on the org chart?
Nothing on the org chart.
Infrastructure Development Director, Jackson, is that you? Okay, that's what I thought. I was just making sure. And Erosion Control Compliance. Who is that person?
We're not being able to hire anybody.
Is it the salary, or what do you think it is?
I can't answer. I hired somebody and then they got, in order to tell you, we hired somebody when we had out there at the convention center, we had that, job fair. But then after he went through, it would have to be a he, and after he went through all the background checks, he said that he found another job.
Oh, boy.
We hadn't had anybody else apply.
Think it's a salary? What do you think it is?
Well, it's probably salary. If you ask me what I think it is, it's probably salary, but.
Well, hopefully it's in the comp study, and when the options come back, it'll be there. All right.
Questions on page 1?
I have more of an observation than a question, I guess. Take line 52, 57, 30, R&M DP equipment. That went up dramatically, but we know why it went up dramatically. Because Mr. Hicks, Michael Hicks, explained that there's a whole bunch of new tools. And I'm, you know me, I'm all for tools. But my question is, you put in tools for responsiveness, to get people answers faster, to make things happen faster. You put them in to improve quality. You put them in to have productivity improvements and quality. So my question is, if we're putting in all these tools, which I think is great, where are we seeing the benefit? And this is sort of a rhetorical question. I'm not expecting it answered tonight. But what I would expect if I were running the organization, I would ask the question, do we need as many people as we have now? You have DocuSign going in, for example. Well, that simplifies the process of transmitting documents. It should shorten the response time. That may not result in fewer people required, but it will make people happier because they'll get their answer earlier and easier. But some things in there ought to result in a reduction in staff hours. Now, whether that gets actually reflected in fewer staff may or may not happen. There are other things that could result in it. It could mean that, well, you don't have fewer staff, but you're getting a lot better results. We're handling a lot more bandwidth. We're handling a lot more issues. And people are happier. They don't mind coming to us with their issues like they did when they couldn't get a response in a timely manner. So this is just a sort of a philosophical thing. I would hope that out of all these tools, that sooner or later we will see some requirements for fewer staff. I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying that is one of the benefits. So one of the questions, if I were going to be around, and I won't be around next year, but if I were going to be around, I would start asking questions because I think we're really improving our data processing. This is a compliment to Michael Hicks and his staff. He's got some of his staff to come back. I think that's really, really good. But I would be asking the question in a year or two, what are the results? What are the benefits that we're seeing for this dramatic increase in service fees, renewals for apps? God knows I've got a lot of apps myself, personally. But we need to be asking that kind of question. That's just an observation.
Well, and Ambrose, if you're asking to quantify a lot of the expenditures and whatnot.
Betcha.
And if you were to, now if you're asking department heads, and depending on them for that answer, I don't think any department head is going to come up here and say, I need less people. I just don't think that's going to happen regardless of how high the technology goes. I think we have to regulate that and establish how we want to operate, how lean. And I always talk about software and programming, and yeah, we're in 2023, but College Park in the late 80s, in the 90s, it was customer service, it was customer friendly. It's just people. You show people that you care for them. It doesn't require a software upgrade for that. It was people. Focusing on the people. If you're in this department, you focus on the people you serve in that department a little bit more. And, there were times when you probably could give more and better customer service with a clipboard and a ledger than with all of this cloud and everything else and all this stuff. And you just say to yourself, and we all know, when we go into a store nowadays, you all know what happened to customer service. I mean, it's going into the toilet. You know, but there's no software fix for that. And I'm not smart enough to quantify what happened to customer service. Just the extra care. I'll see sometimes, you know, we take care with certain situations, but there are other staff members or sometimes an employee who just doesn't care as much. You know, every now and then you get something that's a little off kilter and a little bit selective with certain things. The things that we're known for, like putting those Herbie Kirby's back and so on and so forth. It happens. Sometimes it's random. Some people's driveways are long, some are short. And we got to judge and use our best judgment with service. But just focusing back on it's not a complicated thing, and it's not a software issue all the time. A lot of times it's just doggone it. Let's just be a little bit more thorough and think about how we would want to take care of if Mama came to the counter at whatever department, or my little sister came up there, how we would expect her to be treated, you know, so on and so forth. So we just gotta, you know, I think we just gotta work on tweaking things. And one of the good things about having a new city manager is coming in here and taking a look at things. And, you know, new tech is not always the answer. Staff, obviously, we can't do it without them, but technically we should be able to operate maybe with a little less. We've got $6 million worth of vacant staff that's been open, some of it for almost 2 years. And I'll show you the list that HR gave me. It's a list that shows every open vacancy that's budgeted. It shows how long it's been open. And, you know, that's what we start here this month, and we give all that stuff to you. And you tear through that stuff and take a look at what's going on and what's happening. And I just keep stressing, ask questions. The more questions you ask, the more you will finally get to the bottom of some of our issues. So,
Well, Councilman Karn, each of these budget reviews, budget sections, has performance measures, at least all the ones I've looked at. I think, frankly, I haven't spent much time looking at the performance measures. It's hard enough just to get through the financials. But at some point, these performance measures should be quantifiable, they should be measurable, and that's a management job that I would look to the city manager to focus in on. And I see him nodding his head. I think he and I have maybe some experiences that are in common, where we actually did measure things like that in industry. And at the end of the year, not only are you looking at the dollars and cents numbers, but you're actually looking at what you have achieved against your performance goals.
exactly.
And if we find that we're achieving everything on our performance goals, then maybe we ought to be backing off on some of them and doing it with fewer people. I mean, those are the kinds of trades you can make if you put in good measurement.
Well, you check off a performance list, but in whose book is the checkoff? You can check off that, say someone has done it all, but they might have done half of it. It depends on.
You need to have measurable results.
Right.
And there is a way to do that.
Yeah, but who's doing the measuring? That's the problem.
That's, at some point, I'll make a suggestion. At some point, you need to put in a quality and process management group. We have never done that here, but it's something that I did in industry. And these guys went through and they kept track of how many errors we had in the software, what our delivery time was, what our cycle time on our schedules was, all these metrics. But it required a dedicated group. One of my department heads was responsible for a group of about, I don't know, I think at the time we had about a half dozen, maybe 8 people. That's all they did. They kept measuring quality in the organization. They looked at performance to schedules, et cetera, et cetera. It was a somewhat different environment, so you can't do it exactly the same way.
That would be a game changer.
Well,
Proficiency.
and just about every company, you know, Chick-fil-A does it with their service.
Yeah.
Delta does it with on time and service, and you know, everybody. maybe it is time for us to take a look next year and see. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
if you
just-
were looking for a new position that we don't have now, it would be a quality assurance and productivity measurement group.
Yeah, and even when you hire someone, we just hire someone. We look at their resume and we say, well, you must be qualified. It's all on the paper here. It looks legitimate. But a proficiency test. You know, if someone has on their paperwork, I can handle Microsoft, the Office suite, and Excel. And, okay, well, let's do it. You query these spreadsheets like this, that, and the other, and see if you can actually do it. You know, if you say you can do it, but it's great. We don't want to we hire someone and 6 months in, they don't know what you're talking about. So we don't have any bar in terms of, you know, when we interviewed you, you know, that was the biggest question in the room, you know, staff expectations, and you know, I'll just leave it at that. So, and I know we're getting off course here, but it's important stuff, you know. I worry about it. I worry about it.
Okay, the mayor's gone. So. Page one?
Page
No,
one.
Pro Tem.
Pro Tem.
Anybody have any questions on page one? Here she's back.
She's
Okay.
back.
I'm back. Do we have questions on page one?
No question on page one.
All right, moving on to page two.
I have a question, 6150, engineering services. The question is, are all the engineering services that we incurred up to now listed in this line item, or are they spread across other departments? We're at $166,595 for engineering services.
It's not spread out between any other departments.
And this is between our on-call engineers.
Yes,
So it's recommended 40,000 for 2024. Is that assuming that we'll get an engineer?
that's correct.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions on page two?
So,
I have a question about auto
Wait,
insurance.
hold on one second. I think Councilman Carn was talking.
so just the 166, that's prime.
Part of it's prime, yes, sir.
Okay, and some other outfits?
Yes.
All right.
The
My
auto
question-
insurance is, I don't have anything, that's outside our jurisdiction.
Okay.
My question was just on auto insurance from last year. It jumped sky high, and now it's down in 22, just sky high, and then it's back down again.
Yeah, I can't answer that, it's
Yeah.
outside my
It just,
Is that a finance
finance.
question? Okay. That's line 5260-100.
Yes, it's filled by others.
That just their allocation?
Auto insurance.
That's allocation, Apex?
Yep.
Okay.
That's an allocation.
All right.
but it was sky high for engineering. Okay.
Nobody there.
That's the only question I had.
Additional questions on page two?
No.
Any questions in the budget transaction report? Okay. Next up is T-SPLOST. Questions on T-SPLOST?
This is the Clayton County side we're looking at? Oh, I'm on,
No,
I skipped over T-SPLOST, I'm on SPLOST, sorry. Okay, here we go. And this is, so we've already divvied that up in terms of what we plan for this coming year, or have,
That will be paying the debt service. There's a $10 million debt service on that, so the $2 million expense is related to paying that debt service on an annual basis, and whatever is remaining, I guess, I put it under capital improvements, but
okay. All right, so most of that goes to debt service, got it.
Can you just say for the viewers that's listening, what T-SPLOST is and what the $10 million debt service represent, please?
T-SPLOST is transportation, special
Special
local.
purpose local option sales
Yeah,
tax.
all of that. The council issued that $10 million is like an advance of the future funds for the next 5 years. They did an advance issue on it so they can get started on the project. I believe $3.6 million will go to the bridge. The remaining $10 million will come from a grant. The other $3 million is for miscellaneous that you haven't decided on yet, and the other $3 million would be for the Rose Street improvement, part of the Rose Street improvement.
And part of it, you know, the paving of various streets, that's miscellaneous.
And that's 2 million out of the 10 for the street.
3. It's supposed to be 3 million out of the 10.
It's 3 million
Yes, sir.
for residential street paving.
Yes, sir. Other projects, as you all. Okay,
said-
Jackson's saying 2, so, but
But the other goes to Rose Street and the bridge.
yes, sir.
8 million goes to Rose Street and the bridge.
About 7 million goes to road streets in the bridge.
Can that be used for a playground?
No, you can't, none of that can be used for a playground. It's restricted. Only for transportation.
I understand.
Yeah, I remember when we approved this, we mentioned that we were gonna simultaneously cover some of the other things, streets, sidewalks, and some other stuff as Road Street was built, right? That was part of it.
That's, Councilman, that's what I was talking about. I have some, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, 2 million that we had to be able to do that. But then if you go to the next, once we go to the next one, well, most,
The most, yeah.
the most, which is not the next one, it's the
Right.
one after that, which is I'm trying to also help. Well, I'll get into that when we get to that.
Mayor, I'd like to make a statement for the record. I'd be remiss to say that of that 8 million, approximately 100% goes to C.W. Matthews in our bid process. Is that correct, for the record? Of that 8 million, all goes to one vendor, C.W. Matthews?
C.W. Matthews is a general contractor,
Right, but I'm saying.
so it goes to subcontractors to
Well,
that.
I know about lower tier, but the GC for those bids is C.W. Matthews.
Correct. That's who's building the bridge, correct? And working on,
Yeah, they've
Road
got 3
Street.
projects, yes.
yes.
I just tell you, road work and every other kind of work has gotten so expensive. Jackson, you remember when, you were here with Global, when y'all did Global Gateway, right? The road.
Global Gateway Connector,
Yeah,
yeah, that was cheap.
that was $600,000, the whole thing, and it's quite a bit longer than
That was in
Road
the
Street.
90s.
Yeah, but I look at that and I just cringe and I say to myself, that whole thing was $600,000. And we couldn't get a tenth of Road Street done for that amount now. You know, it makes you just say, well, maybe you should, I guess you do all the roads and if you did them earlier or back in the day or whatever have you could have saved a heck of a lot of money. I remember when Rebecca Ferguson was here.
Yeah, I could buy an SUV for $18,000.
Well, I asked about a parking deck going where the public safety lot is. And she said, oh, Councilman, that's gonna be so cost prohibitive. Well, we're talking about $13,000, $14,000 a space. But now it's like $35,000 a space. And I just say to myself, wow, that was a bargain back then. But, hindsight is 20/20, I guess.
Yeah. Any other questions on T-SPLOST? No. Hearing none, we'll move to SPLOST. 1 page on this one. Questions on SPLOST?
I have one on page 101. We talk about local option SPLOST, and it shows Clayton County. Where's Fulton County?
There's not, it's just for Clayton. The
We don't
SPLOST is
have
just
a-
for Clayton.
We don't have a Fulton. We only have a Fulton County transportation SPLOST. We have no SPLOST, only with Clayton County.
Really? Why is that?
Not in Clayton County.
We don't, Fulton County doesn't have a SPLOST, but we've got a LOST, we've got
They don't have it.
a T-SPLOST.
That's why we don't have it. Daddy's gotta have it before the kids get it.
Well, Clayton's not completely cityfied yet, municipalized, and Fulton is, and a lot of their cuts come from just the realities of the reality. But when it came to loss division, they didn't go with that reality with 600 or 700 people. So sometimes they're in reality, sometimes they're not.
Questions on SPLOST?
No?
Nope, that was mine.
I do have a question about Splash, actually.
Yes,
On
sir?
the Clayton County Splash. Jones Circle off of Garby Road, is that Clayton County?
Yes.
It is.
Because I don't see any improvements in that community. I see us building, the fire station. I see us expanding the road, but I see no improvement on Jones Circle. I haven't seen improvements on Jones Circle since 1998. I recommend that we look at making improvements to those people's streets, sidewalks.
We made when I came here, we did the engineering for Jones Circle, and the Jones Circle was all on septic tanks. And back in 2006 and 7, we moved all those Jones Circles completely off of septic tanks into our sanitary sewer system when we redid that area.
We did that out of our Splash?
No.
I'm talking about the Splash.
No, we didn't
Thank
do it out of Splash.
Splash.
Any other questions on SPLOST?
Nope.
Moving on to MOST. Questions for MOST?
Yeah, I've got one on page 101. Looking at the revenue totals. 2023 actual amount, 3 million.
We have 4 now, but I know where your question is going, and we only have 750,000 budgeted because the $4 million we received, we're not sure is actually ours.
The $4 million we're not sure is what?
Belongs to the city. The state, the Georgia Department of Revenue is having issues with distributing some of the local option sales tax and all, T-SPLOST and the MOST. We've received double the amount, like 2 distributions, and we believe one of those belongs to East Point because they haven't received those. They're trying to work out their issues right now, so I'm not sure truly how much of it is ours until they basically
So you
reconcile.
okay, so you're saying you put in $750,000 instead of 3 million plus.
Yeah, she
Correct.
just wanted to make it safe. She just tried to be safe in case the Department of Revenue says, oh, we gotta take some of this back. to
Okay,
these folks."
okay, but let me ask you this question. Is the amount that we got or are getting in fiscal 2023 in question?
Yes. That's this year. That's that 4 million.
Okay?
That's in question.
So then let me ask you, there's nothing in here for 2022.
Because the collection
Didn't
started
kick in too.
Started
October.
October 2022,
But
when we collected it.
But we
first collection.
had, oh, okay.
We didn't have any.
Yeah,
We didn't have
correct,
any.
we didn't have that, because we
Yeah,
just
October.
got that because of the sewer issue, sure.
Everyone, can we just make sure that we are not speaking on top of each other because it makes our court reporter's job far more difficult. So just please be cognizant of everyone having space to speak and giving her a bit of a break.
That
Do
answer
we
your
know-
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, do we know when you will have a good idea how much we're gonna get? Do you know the time frame?
I do not know. I have an email out to the Department of Revenue, but I haven't heard back from them.
Are we talking to East Point and the others? Are they just as confused as
Yes,
we are? So they
because
don't.
it's not only, sorry, it's not only most, it's also local option sales tax as well. We didn't receive a distribution for the month of November and December, so they're working that out as well.
Wow.
So is the state working things out, or is the issue with the county?
The state.
It's the state.
County don't have anything to do with it.
Okay, so we need to figure, well, we got state representatives, we got state lobbyists, see if we can find out what's going on.
I mean, this is now you're saying it also is an issue with most.
Lost.
I mean, so,
I thought this was most we're talking about, the 3
Well,
million.
the issue is with most and lost. It's pretty much across the board.
okay.
Most,
I
lost,
mean,
T-SPLOST.
So how can we be putting a major budget together when we have literally several $1 million in revenue that's up for grabs?
That's why I'm not budgeting it for next year.
But to my point, if you may be under budgeting, which I'd rather be under budgeting than over budgeting. I agree with you. But we've got a lot of things that we need to do in the city. And if that money is available, we need to be intelligently budgeting it. So my question is, how in May, okay, let's say in May we go with the current budget, the current assumptions about revenue, and then come in June, we get the magic answer. What do? We have to go back through a whole nother budget session then and factor in the changes of where we can apply the money most effectively within the city?
I think our biggest issue is primarily with most. So we don't have any projects right now. We just put it under capital improvement because there isn't any dedicated, these funds aren't dedicated to any particular projects right now. So once we figure that out, we can we can come back before council and amend the budget and say we're receiving $2 million a year and here are the projects that the funds will finance.
Well, one thing, of course, we can always do is retire some of our debt and get our...
Not with the most.
Yeah, it's restricted to water and sewer.
Well, don't we have some debt
I would imagine
in
we
water
do.
and sewer? And don't we have the lift station that we have to...
We need to do the lift station that we took, that you went down there to, and of course, I thought we had 2.5, but I'm still looking for 2.5 million from Congressman Scott's office. I'm waiting for him to vote on it. Send us the money, and then I was trying to use some of this money to finish the lift station that was built in 1979, as I recall, was out there on the plaque.
I can't remember a budget that we've done that we've had this much uncertainty in.
Well, the
Short of
uncertainty is
COVID,
not
when we-
you know, if the money was coming in, we could tell you exactly.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
There was a
Okay,
prediction that...
enough said. I'm sorry I disturbed things.
Well, there was a prediction that we would get, in terms of getting from the most, somewhere around $3 to $4 million a year, I had heard at one point. So the question is, would that be split amongst the new parties that share in it now, us, East Point?
No, don't.
So
It's
that
not
wasn't-
way.
All right.
Any other questions on the most?
Nope.
Moving on to Public Works Administration. Good evening, Mr. Lewis. How are you?
Hello, Mayor and Councilman. How
Hey,
y'all
Tim.
doing today?
Good evening.
Hey, is this just your administrative assistant in this budget, or it looks like it's not both of y'all. I mean, the money doesn't look like it's both of y'all.
Their salary is split 25% across all funds, water and sewer, stormwater.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Questions on page 1?
I have a question on salary, 515010. And that is, if it is split, how come it is so low in 2023 actual at this point? So it's 16, almost 17,000. So if you add another 5 or 6 to it, that would be 21, 22. We're only 41% used, and we're recommending 46.8. And so it's not low because it's split between departments. Because you're anticipating that it's gonna make a jump of roughly, what, 3 times? Why?
That's because I would have to check, but Tim is probably still being charged to water and sewer versus Public Works admin, and just the admin is being charged there right now. So I would have to check with HR to see where his salary is being charged
Okay,
to.
so it may be an accounting, where the salary is being placed at this point. Understand? That makes
Yes.
total sense, or potentially total sense. Okay,
So this is, it's not possible that this is just the one salary, just the admin salary.
Excuse me, it's the Public Works Director and the
Okay.
admin salary.
All right, all right.
Additional questions on page 1?
I have a question. Is the position still open to be filled, the director's position?
Yes, it
That's
is.
correct, yes.
Is it being advertised?
Yes.
Any other questions on page 1? Moving to page 2.
Contractual services, 6170. What is that? I don't see it in the detail.
Page, what page, Joe?
Oh, page 2 of 2, line 6170.
Okay.
But I don't see a 6170 line in the detail here.
no, there isn't any detail,
Okay.
which is another problem.
All right.
I don't think there's
Well-
detail on salaries at all.
It's contractual
It's
services.
contractual services. I was wondering what that was.
There are no detail pages, Joe, for this particular account.
No, there are.
Yeah, right here.
They're right behind it.
Yes.
I don't,
There's
I
2
see it
detail
right here.
pages.
I just didn't see that number, so. Well, if we could find out, that'd be great. Someone could get an answer at some point. Be good to know.
Any other questions on page 2? Questions on the detail?
Well, that was my question.
Well,
on the
like,
detail.
why isn't it all
Where
here?
it was, right. That was the question, but we'll find it, right?
why,
Just make sure.
maybe that's a question for Althea. Why wouldn't there be detail for all those line items in the detail pages?
Because they didn't enter them.
So we have no idea what that's for.
I'm trying to pull it up, but my system is,
Yeah, it's missing. It's missing.
they didn't enter it. It's not missing, they didn't enter the detail.
Yeah, I was mistaken when I said the detail section was missing because it's only, 2 pages, I guess, short pages. So I missed it. But 6170 is not in the detail.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
one of the things that I've already said to staff and the city clerk, and I won't do this throughout my tenure, but I've requested, because I know we do verbatim minutes, and I'm assuming we're doing them for the budget sessions as well, but between council meetings and the budget meetings, I'm going to be looking at the verbatim minutes personally to ensure that we are following up with your questions. So when there are no answers provided, when you ask, it's something that you can expect in the future. Not saying that we haven't been doing it, but I'm going to ensure it.
Thank you, sir. Additional questions for Public Works Administration?
Nope.
We will move on to highways and streets. Questions on the org chart?
Yeah, how many of these positions are not filled currently? I'm talking on the org chart.
It's an operator on 2 and 2 operator 2s.
two operator twos,
Yes.
equipment operator twos.
Yes.
Okay. Because I was going to ask then on the following page, one, I was going to say, well, salary operating currently is 61% used, and it's just short of 250,000. And you're saying going forward, you're putting in the budget for roughly 420,000. And that's a big jump between 250 and 420. And you got a quarter of 250, which is about, what, 800,000 maybe, and 900,000, somewhere in there. And if you add that to 247 and add another 80,000, that'd be about 3.2, 3.3, and we're putting in for 4.2 almost. So I'm just wondering, we're 420, I'm sorry, not 4.2, 420 versus 320. That seems like a pretty big jump.
And that's for salary operations?
That's the first line, salary operating, 51, 50, 10. And that's why I asked how many positions on the org chart were filled, because that would explain that why you were not running as high as you would expect. Because you were in the budget for almost 405,000, right?
Yes.
And you're only running 247, and you want to jump to 420. And it just seems like it's with just those two positions vacant that you ought to be a lot closer than that.
Does the Director of Public Works also get allocated in this? No?
No.
That's 86,000 a person.
Have there been any other vacancies throughout this fiscal year in this department?
Only got one in stormwater, and we got two in highways and streets.
So the remaining positions since July 1st have been full
Yes.
in highways and streets?
My salary comes out of streets and stormwater and stuff like that.
Mr. Cotton, can you make sure that you're talking into the microphone?
I said, then also my salary comes out of stormwater and streets.
50% is charged to stormwater of Mr. Cotton's salary, so it's not the entire department. 50% of his salary comes out of stormwater.
Where does the other come out of?
Highways and streets.
That's the other part.
It
But I
may be
have
fine,
10
it may just be
That's
accounting,
the two positions and half of his salary.
distribution, everything is unsettled in this area, so I can understand it, but it just seemed like a little bit large to me, that's all. Tim?
Well, if you take the two positions and half of Mr. Cotton's salary, that does fall pretty much in line.
But his salary wasn't in the director's position. I thought we determined that.
No, we're talking about the streets.
Yeah, we're in
Highway.
streets.
I understand, but his salary wasn't in the director's position when we came in. Administration, the first thing that we reviewed, only had about, what, $40,000-$50,000 in it. So his salary wasn't in there, or at least much of it was in there. And if it's not there and it's not here, I don't know. It just seems a little strange, that's all. I'm not saying we're all, there's anything terrible. I'm just saying it doesn't seem quite
That's not what
clear.
you're saying, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Ms. Floyd Bradley, would you be able to take another look at this and
Well, the
check-
salary is accurate. They have 10 positions. As far as what's budgeted, is accurate. I would have to look at how HR is charging each personnel salary across the board. So I would have to request highways and streets distribution numbers to see if they're being distributed properly.
Okay. Well, if we could get some additional follow-up information on that and get some clarification, that would be helpful. Are there additional questions on page 1?
Nope.
I have a question. I have a question on 5751. We may have already answered it, but I just want some clarification. We're on 1 or 2, right? Page
Yes,
1
sir.
or 2?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Streets?
Streets. Mr. Cotton, does this represent paving?
That's correct.
Okay, so here's my question. In the T-SPLOST budget, we allocated $2 million. So is this an additional $212 for paving, or why isn't that $2 million in your budget?
No, this is different from the T-SPLOST. This is LMIG. This
Local
is
maintenance.
Make the Improvement Grant.
Will that be paving out of this money?
That'll be paving out of, yes, for this year budget. That's the 30% that we have to use to cover the grant and plus the addition to go with the paving process.
May I just say this? It didn't seem that you two were clear on what's available for T-SPLOST as it relates to streets. You were saying 2 million, you were saying 3 million, he was saying 2 million. City manager, can we get some clarification? Is it 3 million or is it 2 million so that we can see what streets were gonna be impacted?
T-SPLOST,
Yes.
T-SPLOST is what was put out for 2 million.
So it's 2 million.
It's 2 million.
Mr. Cotton, could you make sure the microphone is close to
It's
you?
2 million. All right, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 500,000 per ward, if I'm not mistaken.
Ms. Bradley, you concur with that? It's 2 million?
I would have to check.
Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. That's all I have, Mayor.
Any other questions on page 1? Moving on to page 2. Any questions on the detail?
No.
Moving on to buildings and grounds. Questions on the org chart. Thank you, Mr. Cotton.
Vacancies available in that department, sir?
We have the same question that Clay had about salary.
Okay, we're on to page 1. Question, Councilman Allen, you have a question on line 515010?
Well, it's basically the same question. There was a pretty big jump in salaries.
Yeah, well, it not just applies to that one line,
Right.
there's all 3 lines I had that
Yeah.
question. 10, 20, and 30. Because you can argue that, well, maybe you switching from part-time to full-time and the money's moving around in there, but in total, there's a pretty big jump if you go down to the total line. Right, Ken? I mean, if you look at 2023 actual, it's 445, 681,
Yeah,
and it's gonna go to almost 900,000.
100,000.
It's almost doubling, and it shows up as 8% in the right, at the right, but that's only because it's the current budget versus the future
The amended
budget,
budget, yeah.
not the current actuals versus the future budget. So, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Ms. Floyd Bradley, could you shed some light?
There are 4 positions that work 6 months in one department and 6 months in the other. If HR isn't notified when they switch departments, then you would see a full year's salary in one particular department. Is that stormwater where they split the 2 departments? So stormwater and,
Sanitation.
sanitation and building and grounds splits 4 positions. They do 6 months in one position, they do 6 months in the other.
Well, at some point, and I don't think we have this report, but at some point, you can make an argument, okay, things have been moving around and so forth, and nobody's blaming anybody for that. I mean, you guys have done an extremely good job, given all the circumstances you've been through, Tim. So it's not a complaint about that. But what it is, it says that at the total department level, the director level, if you looked at salary all across, all divisions, and looked at how many positions were vacant across the whole department, total public works, I'm saying now, then you can ask an intelligent question, because people haven't been flowing back and forth between public works and somewhere else. But within public works, yeah, there's been a lot of moving around and what have you, and that certainly could be explained as Althea's explained it. But nonetheless, at the high level, it ought to all average out. And I wonder if it does, because I don't have that report.
But you have 2 vacancies. Remember, we consolidated the 2 departments, parks and building and grounds. So you have 2 vacancies from parks that haven't been filled. Am I correct?
Yes,
Then you have the park rangers in this budget as well.
yes. And only 2 been filled in park rangers. So we still doing applications for the park ranger. We have 3 set up, and hopefully we'll be able to get the 4th one.
So there's 6 park rangers?
Yes.
And only 2 are filled?
Yes, 6 park rangers.
Well, park rangers aren't your most expensive employee,
No, but
so it shouldn't constitute, I mean, what a
Well,
park.
we're missing a supervisor. We're missing a supervisor. We're missing a.
Okay. Well, I don't think we can solve it tonight.
say that
But I
again.
think it needs to be looked at, as the mayor was saying, about something else.
yeah, because there's 27 positions and you have, what, 9 vacancies? 9 or 10 vacancies?
You know, if you could just give the line item, if you could give for 50-10, 50-20, and 50-30,
Yeah.
for those 3 line items, what are the totals across all of Public Works? The grand totals, and just replicate those 3 line items, but include all of Public Works. Run that on the computer, and you'll very quickly see, and you know how many positions haven't been filled, and you very quickly see whether at a Public Works level, at a director level, whether we're out of line or not. And if we're not out of line, okay, we can make those budget adjustments during the year, so we're off a little bit on the budget. That's not a disaster. But if at the total Public Works level we're off the same way, then we've got a real problem.
Additional questions on page 1.
I have a question on 5780. What does the 41,500 represent?
It's in the
Are
detail.
those materials on the grounds?
That's 5780 grounds?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that grounds citywide?
Yes, that's citywide.
I'd like to make a comment. So, I have 15 years' experience as a landscape contractor, nationally recognized. Black Enterprise, Lady Home Journals. I was frequent weekly in AJC Home and Garden. The only minority that did home and garden shows. Here's my point. I mean, there's no way College Park will ever be the city that you put in these studies with $40,000 for 15 square miles of area. I mean, conceivably, there are people that put $400,000 in their yard on the north side of town. I know it's not going to get solved tonight, but I at least want to continue to say this year after year after year. There's no way this city will ever be beautiful, to look like you expect it to look, with $41,000 in the grounds. So at some point, we need to have a conversation about what do we want to look like. Do we just want to give all our money to people to do studies, or do we really want to implement? $41,000 cannot. I'll give you an example. It's not just talking about flower beds. Just in Ward 4 alone, there's approximately 20 common areas. 20 that could be beautified. Everything from soil amendments to hardscapes to irrigation to night lighting. And here again, we need to figure out what we want to look like.
Councilman, I do agree with you that we need to have that conversation, and I think part of that has been through our establishment as a chapter of Keep America Beautiful, through Keep College Park Beautiful. And I know that part of that grounds itemization is for keeping College Park beautiful. But I have a question about the overall spending on that particular program, and I know that it goes in different places. So, but I do want to make sure this is something that the council has put their full support behind. That are we adequately funding both the part-time salary and all of the support? I know that we've got a litter maintenance contract with Georgia Works. And I mean, are we fully supporting this program, and is it fully integrated into this budget?
Yes. Yes, Madam Mayor.
How much is overall allocated for Keep America Beautiful? I'm sorry, Keep College Park Beautiful.
45,000.
45,000. And so that's inclusive of the $3,000 that I see in grounds.
And that's also salary, by the way.
Well, I'm trying to get an understanding of that. That includes the Georgia Works contract and the salary?
Yes.
Okay. Can we put that on the list to revisit?
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. Or I agree with Councilman Gay, it certainly doesn't sound adequate. It may be right, but
Well,
it's either not right or not adequate, or not inclusive enough of what we're actually spending.
it could be a little bit, well, it could be a little bit of both, I guess. Keep College Park Beautiful is well, I guess it's a beautiful initiative in that sense. It's a great thing, and I'm glad we decided that we wanted to do it. But there's a stark difference in terms of overall in the ground, beautification and landscaping investment.
I'm sorry, Madam Member. It's 54,000 plus the 3.
So 57,000?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
Can we still take another look at that to make sure that we're meeting the needs of that program?
And just let me also say, I wasn't talking about Keep College Park Beautiful, although that's a good start. I'm talking about like when you come into College Park, when you first come into Main Street, all that area needs to be beautified. And $41,000, it's inconceivable that a city would only invest $41,000, and it's called park. It's called College Park. It's inconceivable.
And I don't know if anybody heard me, but again, overall beautification, investment in the ground in terms of your landscaping investment. We're a hospitality city, and I say it time and time again, we get quite a bit more company than most. So our investment in terms of, front-facing appearance, I think needs to be double, triple some of the cities around us. We're a showcase city. We're selected by Fulton County and other areas for showcase technology. We have a showcase venue. We're showcased with our hotels and motels and the whole nine. I think, $100,000 investment in beautification would be, a good start. And I would say that would be a minimum for a city like us positioned where we are with as much traffic as we have coming through here. And this is no disparity on public works. You all are working with whatever you got and what we give you. I think we need to give you more a lot of times beautification resolves and helps mitigate some of the other problems and issues of perception and stuff that we have. So, yeah, we need to invest a heck of a lot more. I've seen plenty of lines in here that I would be willing to take out of this budget in terms of that beautification process. Now, the only other side of that is, if you're talking about, you know, I'd love to double this. I'd like to double it plus another 20 to take it to 100. But the workload goes up, the frequency goes up, so you know, everything else goes up with that as well. So that comes with it as well. Since we're online, 5780, one of the things you mentioned to me that I do know we need right now, the incomplete sidewalk on Frontage Road. As we talked about, that sidewalk stopped at the last set of apartment complexes, which was 2,900. This was before our park was built on Camp Creek. So I want to continue the remainder of that sidewalk, which is about 100, probably less than 100 yards or so, to continue that. Now, Tim tells me it may not be quite enough money in the budget for that. I'd like that added. He also tells me it should be a little less than $10,000 to get that knocked out, right?
Yes, Councilman, but that'll fall up on the highways and streets.
That's highways and streets?
Yes.
Okay, and did we cover that? I assume it was under here. Well, City Manager, I want to make sure that we figure out a way to add that in. Again, the park wasn't there when the sidewalk was completed. So now you have sidewalk going all the way up until you get close to we want to finish it the rest of the way to the park. And that park is used not just by College Park residents, but because it front faces Camp Creek Parkway, there are thousands of people that see it, they come in and the kids play and they really enjoy it, so much that we had GDOT install a highway guardrail, which is a good safety feature there. So it's pretty frequently used, but I want to make sure everyone has access to it, like the access of the sidewalks around the other parks. So I want to make sure we add that in. But I think we need to look at, you know, I'd be very happy if we could double this amount in terms of grounds and just commitment in the ground and taking care of things. You take care of what we got, don't get me wrong, but we definitely could step it up in that department, and we'd get a lot of bang if we doubled up that amount and looked a whole lot better. So, yeah.
Additional questions on page 1?
No.
Page 2?
526170 contractual services, and we spent 12,916 actual at this point. So I don't know, add on another 6,000 or so, but it's jumping to 1695. And it was submitted at 164, $62.9 thousand versus 164.9. So I guess, why was there, Jackson, why was there such a difference between what was requested and what was permitted? And even what was permitted seems significantly higher than what was used. It's at 81% used, so if I just take a third of it at this point and add it, there's just a big discrepancy there. It doesn't make any sense to me. And from several different points of view.
I had the same question, what was cut out? You know, if you cut some out.
Well, what was cut out, but even how high it was, why was it so high? I mean, there's a lot of questions on that. Why don't we just add that to the list of something to take a look at?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, the previous manager was trying to take over all the retention ponds, including the GIC. And then he was trying to add a facility manager along with supervisor. And so once Mercedes looked at it, she cut it. and said, we don't need that. And she explained the reason of why she was cutting it. So that was explained to me about what the previous manager, what he was trying to do. So she was saying that she would take over the GIC retention ponds and left the other retention ponds to me to do, and said that is why I have that money that is left in the contractual.
So that's why it was so big.
Yes.
To start with.
Yes.
But if we did that, then some other line items in the budget should have gone down, because those areas are being taken care of now, isn't that true?
Are you referring to the retention ponds?
Yes.
It was 52,026 for the GICC and 26,000 for the FAA, and I moved them to their respective budgets funds.
So it was double accounted, so to speak.
No, I moved them.
Oh,
They
you
weren't in
moved
the right place, yes.
You moved it.
Yeah, they pretty much had it under buildings and grounds, and I moved them to
Okay,
the respective
So
departments.
you moved it from there into, okay, well, that would explain why it went down in the recommendation,
Correct. Part of it.
but it still doesn't explain why it went up so much from what has been expended today.
I think that's just what was requested, right?
Yes.
The recommendation is 62,925, and to date, 12,916 has been spent.
Right.
Well, there is detail which says the compliance for detention ponds.
And not only that, it was where the previous manager was put into contractual service also was to be used to take care of a city hall. So that's why I said Mercedes explained why she was taking that money, because of what was asked before, and she was explaining that City Hall has their own monies for that. So he was trying to take care of mostly, not most, but all of your facility buildings, such as your fire station, police departments, and things of that nature.
But right now, under the 62,925, you have 5 detention ponds at $8,585 apiece. And then $20,000 for removal of trees. That adds up to the 62,925.
So where were these detention ponds before? Because it doesn't seem like they're reflected in the current budget in that same line item.
Did you all do anything with the retention ponds last year or this year?
My understanding they did, and it just explained to me that they sprayed them and they cut them. But the money that was showing here, that was done before I got in this seat. So
We do have those detention ponds that you're talking about. Outside of the GICC, there's 3 out there. We've got some detention ponds that are down there on Temple Avenue. We got 2 detention ponds down there that we got to cut. They're
One on,
Is that part of the
there's
airport?
one over on Green Springs
Yes.
that you're talking about that we cut.
Do we do the one for the FAA? Is that included in?
One of them.
The FAA has their own budget,
they-
though, 26,000.
I think right now, this year, we've allocated just under $16,000 for contractual services. Next year, the recommendation is for $62,925. Where is the difference? These detention ponds that we're discussing, I see them in the itemization, but it does not appear that the same work is being done in this line item this year, because the number would be higher.
the 62 should go down, right? Because
No,
you moved the funds.
I already moved those funds, but where are we currently charging these expenses to as far as the 42,925? What department is paying for that expense, that service? Currently? That's the question.
What department is paying for it?
Are we, was it done? Was the service done
Mayor, I
complete
don't
this
think
year?
we're going
It was
to
done
solve
last
it.
year. I mean, I'm sorry, it was completed last year.
Okay, if we could get some follow-up on this and
Yeah,
just,
Yeah, but we don't see.
are there any other questions on page 2?
No, that's enough.
Moving on to page 3, which is just a total. Any questions on the detail?
No.
All right, moving on to sanitation. Questions on the org chart?
You got open positions here, right?
Yes.
What are the open positions?
Just the superintendent and the office administrator.
We don't have a director. That position has not been filled. We have an interim.
No, that's not a director.
On sanitation, the superintendent, I'm sorry. So you just said that, right?
Yes.
Okay, my bad.
Any other questions on the org chart?
Yeah, no.
So the collectors, we have all 10 of the collectors
Yes.
and the 6, the 4 laborers when it's time for them, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be, yeah, they 6 months up, 6 months down.
How
So
many
is it,
open-
Well, they took 2 of the, labor ones to keep College Park beautiful.
okay,
So it actually is 4.
okay. So we got 4.
Yes.
Okay. But
What-
we had 2 additional ones that would keep College Park beautiful. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, at once it was 6, I think.
Okay. Whose budget is keep College Park beautiful under?
Sanitation.
Okay, I'm completely lost. But the good news is that we got most of these positions filled.
You said you froze the positions, but I have all of them budgeted for 2024. They're all budgeted.
Additional questions on the org chart? Hearing none, we'll move on to page 1.
Yep. Revenue line, 4340. Other city sales, which is going up more significantly. Exactly what are the other city sales and why are they
GIC.
going up a lot more next year than we would expect? In fact, it says 26% compared to what the current budget is. And I would buy that. I would think it is a 26% because the current budget, if we're at 78% expenditure now and around 70,000, and if you take a third of that and add it to there, then you're up around 100,000. And you're up to 113, so that's 13 over 100. That's at least 13% right there.
Well, if you look at fiscal year 2022, they brought in 110,000, so it's only like 3,000 off from actual.
Yeah, so why did it fall off and why did it, it fell off presumably because of COVID, I don't know. And now we're expecting it to go back up.
No, that's just a year. It's just a year difference. 2022 is at 110, and we have 113 budgeted. I believe we're under budgeted for
Okay, let me ask a
2023.
simple question. Who are the cities we sell to?
Us, other departments.
It says
GIs.
other.
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
I thought you were talking about some areas that might be East Point, but we provide sanitation service. I think we have 1 or 2 streets that are like that.
No, this is strictly city sales.
Okay. Forget my question. Sorry.
We've got a question on line 344130. The budgeted amount for sales of recycled material is $15,000, yet we have not hit anywhere near that mark this year.
Yep.
Why are we confident that we can hit it next year, and what's the explanation for why it's so off this year?
For a while, we wasn't doing recycling because we only had 3 drivers and 2 trucks. And so like for a while, we knocked off with that, but everything is back up and running with the recycling program now. So everything should be good. And then we also got old containers that we're recycling. And so that should bring the price up too with all the old bins that we're just getting rid of, taking it down to the recycling plant. So that should get it back up too.
All right.
I have a question on that same line item. Cedric, is that gonna be mostly for glass, the 15,000?
Yes, sir. Glass and then metal bins that we recycle, and like other things like that we collect, like like metal bins and stuff like that we take down to recycling. But the single strand recycling we take, we don't get paid for. But they don't charge us to dump it, so like that's an offset.
It is an offset, I would agree.
Yes, sir.
Additional questions on page 1?
Overall, I guess, so total revenues about 3.45 million. Total expenditures somewhere around 1.58, thereabout. If I'm looking at this right, but maybe I'm not.
No.
The revenue totals are 465.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
projected.
I always say this is one of the hardest working divisions that we have in this city. We did a raise for sanitation, part of the department. I was under the impression, and I wasn't the only one, that we were giving a raise to the collectors as well. Turns out we were only giving a raise to the drivers. And collectors are still at what, was it 15? That is, I just think, unacceptable. And the difference $2 or $3 makes in that department, I think, is tremendous for the work they do. One of the best services that we have is our trash collection city manager. And one of the reasons why is, compared to the other cities, East Point charges about the same amount that we charge monthly for trash service, $18 a month. They pick up 1 time a week. College Park, on the other hand, for the same money, $18 a month, we pick up twice a week. And not only do we do that, we will go to your home, go to the side of your house, retrieve the Herbie-Kirby, take it out to the street, dump it, and then we will place it back on the side of your house. So not only are we doing twice the service in terms of frequency that East Point does for the same money, but the service is impeccable. But the rate that we're paying our folks is unacceptable. That thing should be minimum $18, minimum $18 in my opinion for the type of service we provide. Due to the fact we're the same price as East Point, I always said a $20, $2 bump for that service that's double East Point service would sure seem reasonable, and a lot of residents wouldn't even feel that. That's something I definitely wanted us to take a look at. I've asked for it last year. I'm asking for it this year. I think that's the least we could do for the good customer service we get out of there. So that's something I definitely want you to have on your radar.
All right, so any questions on page 2?
Page 2,
Yes, sir?
your sanitation containers, repair and maintenance, are we getting any new ones, or is this just the maintenance of the containers?
The capital improvement plan for $45,000, that's a container replacement plan.
Okay,
But for that price right there, it's just like lids and other
Okay.
things that we need, like to repair the dumpsters that we have in service already.
okay.
And that's line 525810,
Yes.
correct? Thank you.
But
Additional questions on page 2?
to that line, now, I think last year we put in the money for the actual dumpsters, the 4-yarders and 6-yarders, we put money in for replacements for those last time around, didn't we?
Yes, sir, it's a 5-year plan. And
Right.
It just recycles everything.
So recycling those.
Yes, sir.
So when the bottoms get weak and stuff, do we stretch them? Do we weld them and try to make them last?
Depending on the condition, like some of them just really can't be saved because of the weight.
Right.
And like, so with those are the ones I say that we recycle.
Mhm.
And then we just try to get the ones back in service with the CIP plan.
Okay, well, we want to try to stretch them out. Our welder, we still just got the one.
Yes, sir, he's retiring on the 30th, actually.
Yeah, we got to do something about that. And I would love for y'all to just, pick somebody out and train them up in that. That is an invaluable skill, man. I mean, that's something we really need a double. It's got to be somebody might be interested in that, right?
Yes, sir. Like a lot of our positions got to come from within, like just because of like the starting like salary, like for drivers and stuff like that. Like it's kind of hard like to get experience working in right now.
Yeah, well, when you get the new person, start training up a backup to learn that stuff, because that's a skill that, that's a very valuable skill, and we need 2 folks that can handle that. That'd really be great. I'll just try to keep that in mind, and, be looking for somebody that wants to learn a little bit more, and then may be able to earn a little bit more.
Yes, sir.
I know I'll pay them a little more.
Well, one of the great things about the middle college that is going into the former McLaren High School is that welding is actually one of the skills that will be taught there, in addition to aviation technology, automotive technology, and a number of other trades. So we will have the opportunity within College Park to actually have students that are coming out of that school with 4 years of training with a high school diploma and certifications in various areas. So it's opening in the fall of 2024. So we will have a pipeline right here on Main Street, which is very, very exciting. But additional questions on page 2.
No, but a comment is that, speaking of the middle school, we haven't talked about what enrollment looks like. We don't know if that's for City of College Park kids, so that's a conversation I'm ready to have right after this budget. What will enrollment look like for that school?
Well, happy to invite Fulton County Schools so we can get some of those questions answered.
I've already talked to Dr. Looney and Kim Dove and others, and they're excited to have them down so we can have that conversation. What will enrollment look like?
Perfect. Questions on page 2. Moving on to page 3. Question on line 526140. We are already well over our allocated amount on dog pound fees. We're at 113%. Does it make sense for us to set the budget at the same amount next year?
Well,
Mr. Lewis, Ms. Fleur Bradley?
We should have some money to move around,
Money to move around?
considering we can't find where those 5 retention ponds. Is this the same budget? No.
No, same.
Oh, okay, sorry. We would have to find some money to move around, because they're like, I can't stretch it anymore, so we would have to move around some funds.
well, another thing that would determine what we need to do there is the enforcement of our dangerous dog ordinance, which is next to non-existent. We have an ordinance for large dogs and animals in the city, and a lot of that action goes on in and around our apartment communities. It's not well regulated, tracked, and we had a whole 30 minutes on it at one, I think last year sometime, where it's just not happening. And I was told at some point that our dog catcher would stop doing the cats for some reason. And it's a huge proliferation of cats over in Embarcadero, for example, where they used to cover cats, but now for some reason I guess they just decided not to. I don't know if someone just arbitrarily did that or whatever have you, but there are a lot of things we need to look at and that we want to make sure we're covering, where we have things in place, but we got to utilize them as well to reduce some of these other things. These big dogs are supposed to be insured. It's a group of certain dangerous dogs, Rottweilers, German Shepherds, Pit Bulls, those type. And we set some regulations in place. They have to have their shots. They have to be insured. They have to be properly tagged, so on and so forth. And nobody's really checking. Nobody's looking. And they're all over the place. And it brings down, there's some breeding operations going on in some apartments out on the patio, literal breeding operations. And I get complaints from neighbors and stuff. And it's just, we have been understaffed. So we gotta just reorganize, but there are a lot of little components and things that will help us improve the standards as we go on. And I know it's a lot, but we got a lot to look at. We got a lot to look at, so.
Additional questions on page 3?
No questions.
Moving on to page 4.
I see your container replacement there. Is that 7680 sanitation container replacement?
Yes, sir.
How many are y'all going to be adding? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't. Like, I just got a load in Tuesday, last Tuesday for 7 8-yard containers. Like just to go and close out this 45,000 right here for this year.
Yeah.
So I just got a load in 8-yard containers, but I have to see what's needed and then like what'll fill up a whole load, so I won't waste like shipping costs. So I like try to fill up the whole load like with the load. So I have to see what works out like as far as like what sizes and how many I need at the time.
Okay.
Any other questions on page 4?
No questions.
Any questions on the detail?
No questions.
Nope.
We're moving on to stormwater. Questions on the org chart? Welcome back, Mr. Cotton. We'll start on page 1.
I had one question. I think we've touched on this before on line 52, 5240, telephone. But that's a really huge jump. And I know it's an allocation, right, Althea?
Yes, sir.
But why would the allocation go up so much compared to
That's an IT question.
I mean, the actual amount is,
They're showing the wind stream is at $293 a month.
well, their actual 2023 is $934. And at that point, they're 189% utilized. The budget was $494. They've utilized $934. Okay, so that says add on another third, just roughly, or more than a little more than that. That takes them up to 1,200, but they're now at 5,000. That's 5 times as much. And on it here, it shows us 918 compared to what the actual budget was, 918%. It just,
We can add that to the list of questions
Yeah,
that need a
let's
response,
add it
because
to the
I would
list.
have to get with IT on why they're allocating.
yeah, I know
that
it's,
much.
and we've seen it before, but this is even, seems more dramatic than what we've seen before. And I can't believe that this department is so unique, that its needs have suddenly changed dramatically like that. Anyhow,
Additional questions on page 1 of stormwater? moving on to page 2.
I've got several.
Are we all going to 6590?
Well, 5820,
Okay.
R&M, storm sewers, repair and maintenance. Actual was $210.47 so far. So be generous and add another 100 on, let's say, and say it's about 300 and something. And they went 20,000. There was 20,000 in the budget, amended budget. So we just put in the same thing that we had in before, but it's like nothing like what we actually expended. So why do we think we're going to expend so much more this year than last year? Next year than this year, I should say. I've got to believe there's some kind of mischarge that everything is not appearing in the actual column that ought to be. Because I've got to believe that we've done more than $210.47.
Oh, yeah, that's gotta be that's a defect on misprint. That ain't accurate. So it might have been a error. Had to be an error
An error on what?
for storm and sewer. I spent more funds out of my.
It depends on how you coded it. If you didn't code it properly, it probably went to another account.
Yeah.
No, if it's out of storm and sewer, that's where I take it at, dealing with all catch basin repairs, anything dealing with storm water, manhole cover, order, steel order, anything dealing with storm water, what it come out of.
Okay.
So can we take a look into that? And
Yeah, they would have to go to the detail and look at the vendor that they provided to pull the invoices, because it depends on how it's coded.
okay.
And we've got our old friend contractual services, 526170. Why the dramatic increase in that?
Yeah, that number just jumps around.
It's actually a decrease in the budgeted amount, but it's an increase, significant increase in what was actually expended so far this year, which you could argue is maybe $8,000. It's roughly 6 now, add a third, that's 8,000, and you're comparing against 26,000, which is much less than 41,000, which was the 2023 amended budget, which is much more than the 2022 budget, which was 18,000. I mean, the number's just jumping all over the place.
Ambrose, you sound like my 6th grade math teacher right now.
I do.
I'm having flashbacks. I'm completely lost.
Could that be an item that we also come back to? I don't know if they can come up with a number for us right now.
I think this budget may need some serious work.
Okay, Councilman, you asking,
Well, Tim, let's just take it easy at first. Let's just take one thing at a time. The departmental actual is about roughly $6,000. It says we've only expended 14% of what was actually budgeted, but forget about that for a minute. It's only $6,000. You've gone 2/3 of the way through the fiscal year. So if it's $6,000, just assume that you've gone, I said 2/3, you've gone 3/4 through the fiscal year. Take a third of that, which is another quarter, which is $2,000 roughly. Add that on to 6,000, that says 8,000. But it's budgeted for 26,000. So one simple question is, well, why are we going to suddenly spend in fiscal 24, so much more than we are spending in fiscal 23. Why are we gonna spend 26,000 versus 8,000? That's 3 times as much. That's one question. What will we be doing in the next fiscal year, starting July 1, that we haven't been doing in this fiscal year? Because your labor force is running right on target for some things anyhow. Your sales, for example, your sales hasn't gone up or down. That's to be expected, right? Because it's just on the bill. It's just a linear charge. Regardless of what you spend, you're going to charge the citizens a certain amount. You look at your salary line item, and you're running 59% used. You've spent 86,000, and there you're going to expend a significant amount of more. I don't know. But this is contractual services. So are we going to contract? Is this I didn't go into the detail. Are we going to contract the 526170? Are we going to contract a bunch more of this cleaning out the retention ponds?
It's
You
regulatory.
got stormwater, stream water monitoring, you got inspection, and you got regulatory compliance. I would think regulatory compliance would be the same. I would think stormwater inspection would be the same. And I would think those are all things that don't change. I mean, have regulations gone up significantly that we
It's
got
not
to
the-
spend
it's
a
not
lot
the
more money on it?
regulations. I was gonna try to help. It's not the regulations, it's a cost for some of that.
But it's
Because
gone up.
Because we have to have an MS4, and it took us, MS4 is stormwater. And we had to contractual service to get the MS4 as, because some of the things that was sent to the Department of Environmental was, wrong.
Okay,
And we had to correct all that stuff.
Okay.
You remember? And I had to,
okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll buy
And we didn't
that.
have that last year?
We had some issues.
That happened in 2020, I think. Is that right?
2021.
2021, yeah.
Yeah, but it's still, we still have to, I wanted to make sure, he's got to make sure that we still stay in compliance. So we do need as much contractual service for that as we go forward, because we don't want to make that same mistake we
No.
had.
We certainly do not. Question on line 6590.
Yeah.
Can you go into detail on that, please?
Contingencies?
Line 6590.
Oh, contingency?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
That was me.
Okay,
Revenue was over expenditure, so I placed it in contingencies.
okay. All right. Additional questions on page 2?
No,
Safety supplies, you've only got $500. Is that gonna be enough for safety supplies? Oh, okay.
Althea, this budget here in particular, we talked about the surplus revenues there. Does this spill over into other public works and take care of some expenses in the other ones, or is this exclusively sanitation only?
Stormwater.
Stormwater.
I'm sorry, stormwater only.
No, it doesn't go into any other public works department.
Okay, all right.
these funds are enterprise funds, and they should pay
Yes,
for
sir.
themselves, right?
So when we say stormwater and allowable expenses, I guess the normal stuff you think about, drainage and grates and all that type of business, is that all that qualifies?
It's correct.
gutters and stuff. I mean, but some of it bleeds over into, I guess, streets and highways. I mean, a rain gutter, is that a stormwater expense, for example, I guess? Or is it yes and no?
Yes.
Okay, so do we usually have money left over in the pot with this, or we usually blow through it all?
We normally have funds remaining that fall into the reserves.
Okay, about how much a year average do we have?
I don't have that right offhand.
It's not this 700,000 number then?
No.
Okay.
Normally, I would use some of that to transfer over to the general fund.
Okay, that's why I asked you, was this restricted funds? Could it go?
It's not restricted.
Okay, okay.
It's not restricted.
Okay. It's not restricted.
No.
Okay.
The enterprise funds aren't restricted.
Okay, because I asked, could it go into other?
It can. You asked me, was it going into others? I said no, but it can.
Okay. Oh, but it
Yeah,
okay.
I normally transfer, yes, it can.
Okay, so it's unrestricted funds?
Yes, sir.
Got it. Okay, understand now.
Yes,
On this-
Councilman Gay, go ahead.
On the 6590, I have a question for Mr. Cotton. So one of the biggest complaints that we're getting is People's Creek need to be restored. So we met with the city manager, I guess it was Jackson and I, and the city attorney, I'm sorry, as we have done year after year after year. So the question is, can out of this contractual service fee, can we look at what creeks belong to the city? Because what I'm hearing is that up in engineering, we don't know what creeks belong to the city, which creeks have easements, which we have an easement on. I talked with the guy in GIS. He's saying he's like light years away from putting that together. I talked with Ada. She's saying it's just like stuck away in the closet. When we talk to Prime says we need to know what creeks are our creeks to maintain. So under stormwater, can we put a note that make that perhaps done out of those monies to identify which stormwater basins or creeks?
Out of which line item that you indicated?
52, 65, 90.
Well, any line item where there is possible monies to do it.
Is that a stormwater expense?
Because several years ago, Councilman Phillips was able to advocate for all of the creeks on Green Spring. It was approximately $475,000. And so the other residents are like, well, we're all connected in creeks. Why? And so then the question is, we're not sure which of those creeks are ours to maintain or not. So that's what Ms. Pearson was telling us in our meeting. So can we get to the bottom of this out of this budget?
Is that considered a stormwater expense? I mean, is it?
Creek by going by,
Well,
that
ma'am,
sure falls up under
stormwater
engineering.
is from the rain.
I understand. I'm asking them, is that a
That
stormwater
sure
expense?
falls up under engineering, because you gotta have somebody do some surveying.
He's saying it should fall under engineering.
Well, we pay a stormwater fee. Our residents, including myself, we pay a stormwater maintenance fee. That is the fee that we pay to channel water from our street basins through their yards to the creeks. And I'm talking about the creeks that collects the water. And so the complaint has been that the creeks have eroded. So my question is, maybe it is an engineering study, but the point is, I'm not just trying to have a conversation. I'm saying, can we finally get some money to see if we can mitigate these creeks as if they're our responsibility or if they're the responsibility of the citizens?
We can add that to the list.
Yeah, put it on the list.
Because I believe when you have a running creek, a running stream, wouldn't that be state?
Well, we had a meeting. Jackson, can you shed some light? Because we've met on
We
this.
talked about that the Corps of Engineers have taken over and, we'd have to have a 404 permit in order to get into those. All streams are state waters.
No.
State.
Let's be specific, Jackson. We're talking specifically about identifying which creeks has a city easement that we have an easement so that we can legally restore them. We're not talking about waters of the state. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying, you understand what I'm saying?
Let me go back and I'll tell you.
Winthrop, Tangi Ward, year after year after year after year. Mike Mason is going out there and put crusher on. There's numerous of and I hope I'm speaking for the other people's wards. I'm just can only talk about my ward. We go out and put crusher on in people's yards, and then we tell them, well, we can't do any more. We just need to identify which creeks we can or cannot work on.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's.
can I say this, Councilman? The only time, that if we in the buffer and we and if we doing some work in the buffer and we got to put the creek back to where
Okay, Mayor, I think we're confused. I'm not trying to debate. I'm just asking, can we put some monies aside to identify what creeks are ours and what creeks aren't?
Can we put it on, hold on, he addressed it to me. So why don't we put it on the list and we will talk about it.
All right.
But I don't want to get stuck on any one particular issue. It is 9:30. So why don't we keep on moving? It goes on the list. And are there any other questions on page 2?
Just say, we also may actually have that information somewhere as well, so let's just keep that in mind too.
I think, Joe, I think Councilman Kern may be right. It's a matter of finding it.
Okay, so let's follow up on that. But are there any other questions on page 2?
No.
Moving on to page 3.
No.
I don't want to ask any more questions.
Any questions on the detail?
I don't think
good.
so.
I'm good.
Our next one up is water and sewer. Any questions on the org chart?
Just, do we have any positions that are not filled there?
We only have the labor 1.
One labor one, and
Yes.
if you look at the next page, you'll see you're tracking at 76% of revenue, and your usage is 69 in one case and 95 in the other case and 101, so it's in the ballpark. So you're tracking pretty well, expenses versus revenue, it looks like. Just quick looking at it.
Questions on page 1?
No,
No, not right now.
Moving on to page 2.
no. This department's pretty stable.
Page 3, I had the same question about line 526590. Is that you, Ms. Fullord Bradley, on page 3?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any other questions on page 3?
No,
Page 4.
no,
Page 1 of 7 on the budget transaction report. Any questions on the detail?
nope.
Then we're all good.
Tim, I just want to say, first of all, I want to thank y'all for the job that y'all do out here. And I know what y'all's wheelhouse is. And at the end of the day, I always say that in terms of dollar for dollar, in terms of sweat equity to work and for dollars, you all are at the top of the list. It's getting hot out here, and I know y'all out here working hard, and I want y'all to know we really appreciate it. At the end of the day, the stuff that we want to see done, it's in this book, but it's not in this book, if you get what I'm saying. So I appreciate y'all, and we know what we're looking for y'all to get out there and do every day that nobody else can do. So just thank you.
And I'd like to
Thanks,
thank Tim for stepping up to the plate.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Amen.
And Mr. Lewis, you have endured some major challenges in your time in the interim position, and we are so grateful for your service to the city. We know that it has spanned the better part of 25 years, and probably had no idea that this was what you would be facing, but we really do appreciate everything that you've done, everything your team has done. And at 9:32 p.m., we are adjourned.
Thank you.